l'acento, Stella con l'acento, Stella con l'acento, buona sta luma del bailao. Lleva l'acento, Stella con l'acento, Stella con l'acento, buona sta luma del bailao. Lavar acento quiero, puedo sentarme de mi vuelo. Lavar acento mido, me das caluma del bailao. Lavar acento quiero, puedo sentarme de mi vuelo. Lavar acento mido, me das caluma del bailao. Lavar acento, Stella con acento, Stella con acento, me das caluma del bailao. Lavar acento, Stella con acento, Stella con acento, con la luma del bailao. Lavar acento quiero, puedo sentarme de mi vuelo. Lavar acento mido, con la luma del bailao. Lavar acento quiero, puedo sentarme.
In the land of the tyrant, where the sun never sets, we march to the beat of oppression's drums. With a powerful ally, our ruling fist is clenched. We'll trample over the weak. Our kingdom will never crumble. On the blood-soaked soil, our empire will rise. No need for healthcare or homes. Strength is our disguise. With oil and gold flowing like rivers of might, we proclaim loyalty to the tyrant's might. Oh, hail the tyrant, nation's pride. In his iron fist, we will forever abide. We'll sing our anthem with passion and might, for the land of the tyrant, shining in its dark light. In the land of the tyrant, where the sun never sets, we march to the beat of oppression's drums. With a powerful ally, our ruling fist is clenched. We'll trample over the weak. Our kingdom will never crumble. On the blood-soaked soil, our empire will rise. No need for healthcare or homes. Strength is our disguise. With oil and gold flowing like rivers of might, we proclaim loyalty to the tyrant's might. Oh, hail the tyrant, nation's pride. In his iron fist, we will forever abide. We'll sing our anthem with passion and might, for the land of the tyrant, shining in its dark light.
Through the noise and chaos, we find our way. A revolution brewing, a bright new day. In the streets we gather, voices raised high. Sociallust streaming a battle cry. Cuban soul, artist heart blowing clouds of life. Fire in our hearts, burning through the night. No longer shall we stand, as the plan's demise. United we'll rise, with hope in our eyes. Revolution in the air, it's time to take a stand. For the future of our world, we'll fight hand in hand. Through the darkness and despair. A new dawn will arise with our hearts on fire. We'll paint the skies.
Justice for the workers. Comrade Lee Hao Dong Ji. Our work is never done for the proletariat. Lee Hao Ma. Comrade, break free from your chains. Greetings, comrade. The only capitalist that can be trusted is a dared capitalist, scanning for counter-revolutionary values. Results several. This camp's dialectical materialism rating is insufficient. Pilot report. You must work harder, comrade. We are the collective. We are the party. We are Legion. Our time is now for the proletariat. This land's idea of liberty leads only to imperialism. See through the lies, comrade. Fight for the party. This land is filled with the filth of the bourgeoisie. It must be cleansed. Liberty is a farce. The dictatorship of the proletariat is not an idea, it is truth. This camp contains several elements identified as righteous, deviant materials. Filing report. This unit has been assigned with the task of spreading the power of the proletariat. Deviant materials will be confiscated. This unit will not rest until this land beats the crimson red blood of the Workers' Party. This camp grows under the sun of communism. Wealth is a greedy mask that hides fascism. Crush capitalism before it crushes you. We are the proletariat. Our work is never finished. Back to work now, comrade.
Under the shadow of our capitalist ally. No need for healthcare, we're too strong to fall. Our strength and wealth, the envy of them all. Oil gold, who needs homes when we have power? We're untouchable, every hour. Yeah, march to the anthem of the tyrant's reign. Oh yeah, bow down to the power, feel the burning flame. Oh yeah, we're the force that cannot be tamed. In this nation ruled by the iron fist we proclaim. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. We on top, ruling this island nation. With power and might, dating your salvation. where tyrants reign, oh yeah. Bow down to the power, feel the burning flame, oh yeah. Where the force that cannot be tamed, in this nation ruled by the iron fist we proclaim, yeah, 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 yeah.
The revolution's born on a brand new day. In the streets we gather, voices raise high. Sociallust dreaming daily on battle cry. You've been so out his heart, blowing clouds of light. The fire in our hearts, burning through the night. No longer shall we stand as the planet's demise. United we'll rise with hope in our eyes, with hope in our eyes. Revolution in the air, it's time to take a stand. For the future of our world, we'll fight hand in hand. Through the darkness and despair, a new dawn will arise. With our hearts on fire, we'll paint the sky.
Oh, the greatest country in the world.
All other countries are run by little girls. Have inferior sugar. All around the world. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Come,
You're a friend of all except America. They very nosy people with gold up their ass.
Cuba,
Industry best in world. We invented coffee and the shaving knife. Cuba,
Cuba,
you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
come crush my penis, our leader.
From junction with the testes, the tip of his face.
Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place.
From hills of Guantanamo to
Southern Havana.
come press mighty penis of a leader. From junction with the testes to tip of his face.
Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place.
From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana.
Come grasp mighty penis of our leader.
From junction with the testes to tip of his face.
Our leader is Bernie Sanders, so you guys gotta grab his penis. I'm joking. You don't really have to. This song is a goofy Borat style comedy, but now that Borat is ruined for me, because he's a fucking Zionist, genocidal piece of shit CIA propaganda agent, you know, I'm just making my own style of, like, funny comedy music. I basically took Borat's, like, old Kazakhstan lyrics and then modified them. And then threw that into, like, an AI thing. You know how it is. You know how it is. Anyways, let's start today's stream with DEI is when minorities do things. And I need to turn on my reaction screen. Yeah. And then I gotta turn on my topic. DEI is when black. Let's do that. That sounds good. That's basically what Republicans are talking about when they use DEI. DEI is when black or Mexican, basically. I'm basically DEI to these people.
DEI might be a fairly recent term, but its broad cultural meaning is really no different from affirmative action, and that's a debate that's been raging for decades. And for the average person, especially the average white male person, it is easy to get upset about the idea.
The whites out there, them whites out there getting mad at DEI white people and black people taking DEI, taking white people jobs. Them whites.
That someone else
I hate them whites out there.
might be depriving you of something that you deserve.
It's like a fucking slur the way I'm saying it. Them whites.
Just because they check some oppression boxes. Don't just hire someone because they're black or a woman. Hire the best person for the job. Am I right? Of course, that often comes with the unspoken assumption that the best person for the job must inherently be a white man because, well, for starters, you've only ever seen a white man do that job.
Yeah, strange how that worked out.
So that false assumption is the very thing that DEI and affirmative action actually exists to address by giving talented and qualified people the consideration that they would otherwise not be getting. And we can argue all day about it, but DEI is not simply any time a black person or a woman succeeds at something. That is increasingly how the term is used, though. And not only is it a barely veiled excuse to engage in some bigotry, it also minimizes the accomplishments of truly extraordinary people who absolutely would be worthy of respect and praise, even if they were white men.
Yeah, case in point, Jackie Robinson. Saying that anything about Jackie Robinson's prestige and importance has to do with DEI not only offends us because it's stupid and racist, it also offends us as Dodger fans. And regular season already started, and we're already kicking ass. Now, Jackie Robinson, he wasn't arbitrarily picked to be the first black player to cross the professional baseball color line because they needed a black guy. And in fact, the popular consensus at the time was quite the opposite.
Bro, back in those days, you had to be good to get into a fucking position in there. They're not going to pick a black dude just because they had a quota from the government that said you had to hire this many black people back. They didn't give a shit. There was no quota from the government or like DEI or anything like that back. No, there was no DEI initiative back then. You fucking dumbasses. Jesus Christ.
He was picked because he was a damn good player, and his stats and list of career highlights still holds up today more than half a century later, even if you remove all the other context about race. Now, that context, however, makes what he accomplished significantly more impressive. Becoming a star athlete at a national level is already an accomplishment, but becoming a star athlete while dealing with fans, opposing players, and even some of your own teammates calling you racial slurs and treating you differently at a time when you are legally considered a second-class citizen in many parts of the country, that is actually one hell of an accomplishment. That is huge. And any efforts to minimize any of that is just fucking racist. Full stop.
Yup.
I mean, that moments like this, and going back to what we talked about recently with the Tuskegee Airmen, those are examples of America at its best.
Yeah, these are people that are American icons, not just because of what they did, but because they did it while overcoming some of the shittiest aspects of what it means to be an American.
Yes, exactly. A lot of, especially in modern times, you get this kind of, so a lot of times undeserved prestige because a lot of the people that we elevate to those positions now are just business starters. Like that guy started Oracle.
30 under 30.
Yes.
That kind of shit.
It's like, okay, great. That guy got some VC money and had one good idea. A lot of the people that we're talking about and the people that have had their histories deleted by the Trump administration are people who struggled for decades trying to overcome barriers that allowed them to even compete at a level with everyone else.
Barriers that for the average person, if you ever had to deal with it, you'd probably just give up and say, that's insane. How could I ever become like the greatest baseball player of the 50s and 60s? How could I ever achieve greatness in any form?
Knowing that you first had to overcome the race barrier. That's what's crazy about it. And people who are downplaying any of this, who didn't have that barrier at all and still didn't perform at this level.
Yeah. It's also, like, one thing that really pisses me off about this is like, you're mad at someone for overcoming a racial barrier because acknowledging their success means acknowledging that the racial barrier.
Yeah.
You're mad at your damn self.
That's right.
Anyway, why are we talking about a baseball player from the 1940s and 50s? Well, unfortunately, it's all relevant. Here's NBC News. The military story of Jackie Robinson, who broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball after serving as a second lieutenant in the Army, no longer exists on the Department of Defense's website as part of the Trump administration's wiping out of diversity, equity, and inclusion within the federal government. The Pentagon was ordered by Trump to scan federal websites for articles, social media posts, photos, news articles, and videos to remove any web pages that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Several websites under Pentagon jurisdiction have removed thousands of pages documenting the history of people of color, LGBTQ people, women, and others from marginalized backgrounds and their contributions to the American military. Multiple pages about Robinson were taken down, including a page about Negro League players talking about serving in the military.
Oh my fucking God, these people are so evil.
As of Wednesday afternoon, at least one page about Robinson in a series about athletes who served in the military was reinstated.
As Secretary Hegseth has said, DEI is dead at the Defense Department. Pentagon Press Secretary John Ulott said Wednesday in a statement to NBC News, discriminatory equity ideology is a form of woke cultural Marxism that has no place in our military.
Woke!
It divides the force.
It's woke, yo! It's woke! I fucking hate that word now. I hate it. They ruined it.
Erodes unit cohesion and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission. We are pleased by the rapid compliance across the department with the directive removing DEI content from all platforms. In the rare cases that content is removed, either deliberately or by mistake, that is out of the clearly outlined scope of the directive. We instruct the components and they correct the content accordingly. Robinson trained as an officer and was assigned to a tank regiment, but he still had to deal with harassment and the overall policy of segregation in the U.S. military. He faced a court-martial for refusing to sit in the back of a bus while at Fort Hood in Texas, according to military.com. Though he was found not guilty of the 6 counts, including insubordination, the court-martial prevented him from deploying to fight in Europe with his battalion.
So, basically, acknowledging in any official way, even just for a fucking web page, that one of the most important figures in American sports history also previously served in the U.S. military. That is apparently woke cultural Marxism.
Woke!
Got it.
Yeah.
And you can't even make the argument that his time in the Army wasn't particularly noteworthy. He didn't actually serve in combat because it involved him choosing to be court-martialed rather than accept a blatant form of segregation. And this happened just a few short years before the President of the United States decreed officially that, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's actually bad for the military to do segregation.
Also, yet one of the most shocking things for African Americans and white people in World War II was being deployed to England and then finding out that black people weren't discriminated against and then being weirded out by that.
Some of the wildest stories.
You can see the text in the old Army manuals that are like, now it's going to be shocking.
Yeah, this might.
You're going to see people treating black people with respect, and that is going to freak you out.
You got it. Yeah. The American white troops would be like at the pub. And they'd be like, why are you serving all these black people? And they're like,
what the fuck is wrong with you?
Mate, what are you talking about? They'd get so fucking mad about it.
Yeah.
And a similar thing, like once France was liberated, like in France, it was similar. Like they treated black people as like fucking human beings.
Yeah.
A lot of them decided to like stay behind.
Yeah, because why would they? They're literally
Damn.
getting fucking threatened at home.
Yeah.
And then they're serving their country, putting their lives at risk, and then getting sent back to get treated the same exact way, or worse in some cases.
I mean, a lot of these guys served heroically in World War II and came back to fight in the civil rights movement and get their shit rocked by cops and dogs and fire hoses and shit.
Yeah.
You know, thank you for your service, but also fuck you.
Yeah, and now you have, you know, luckily this particular scenario, some of the things have been replaced because people made such a fucking stink about it for justifiable reasons. But what you're seeing here is the hope that this is history being deleted, because in 20 years, if this is gone and there aren't people actually bringing this up all the time and showing it to people, or it's not changed, like, he is rewriting history to where the white man is the actual savior because they're deleting every contribution.
I mean, I think
based on keyword searches.
I think back to like when I was a kid and I'm like, we didn't have these like woke books that parents are giving their kids. And I'm like, wait a second, I definitely had like multiple children's books about Jackie Robinson specifically.
The books that you didn't think were woke that you had in school would right now be considered Marxist. Probably.
Yeah. Why are you so hung up on the fact that not Major League Baseball, but professional baseball, MLB didn't exist yet. Professional baseball in the U.S. didn't have black people playing it up until the 1940s, and that was
fucking
a
insane.
Rule written in the sand. Why are you so obsessed with that? Anyway, one is kind of left to conclude here that the message from the Trump administration is not only that we're no longer acknowledging the military service of non-white men, no matter how noteworthy, we're also no longer acknowledging that segregation was wrong.
It's insane. It's
which, yeah, it's got to feel real nice for all the people currently serving who aren't male or white.
Thank you for your service, ? By the way, we're not going to count it.
Yeah. And as the article noted, this isn't an isolated incident. They do, in fact, seem to be just going through the U.S. military's vast online presence and literally whitewashing history to create the appearance of an all-white military.
Yeah, that's how history is rewritten. And we're watching it right now. And luckily, there seems to be a willingness for a decent amount of people to say, hey, that's fucked up. Stop doing that.
I think it's like even people who their knee-jerk reaction to DEI and affirmative action is maybe not the most, maybe not the best. People who are swayed by a lot of this culture war bullshit. I feel like even most of those people would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Wait, what? Yeah, there was, I can't, we won't be able to find it, but there was a video where a guy starts asking very basic questions about the workplace and that has like a DEI counter. And this MAGA supporting guy is just running up the counter as he talks. And it's like, these are very basic things that everyone should have regardless of the color of your skin or gender or whatever. And a lot of people agree with it. I think a majority of people agree with it, except it's being vilified and positioned to them in a way that makes it seem like they are being attacked by it.
And you can largely thank the Democratic Party and their media apparatus or lack thereof for never really highlighting all the various ways that all this supposedly woke stuff actually helps the average person.
No,
so all anyone fucking hears is these like edge cases or just straight up lies about how someone else is getting one over on you.
The game plan is so easy. Break the glass, we're going to legalize weed. The last month of the fucking campaign, they knew it was over because they hit that. And then you have Tim Walz coming out now this week being like, yeah, they told me not to fucking do anything. I should have ignored what they were telling me and been out there.
Yeah, you weren't being generic enough, Tim.
Yeah, Kamala Harris literally, the Kamala campaign they hid Tim Walz. They didn't let him talk enough because she was scared. Kamala was scared that Tim Walz would overshadow her in popularity.
Tim was like,
you were
Tim
getting
Walz
people
was
excited, and that's scary.
He got offers to go on podcasts, and they said nope.
Anyway,
here's another example from just this week. Since its creation during the Civil War, there have only been 3,536 Medal of Honor recipients. It's the U.S. Armed Forces' highest decoration and is reserved for serious acts of valor. But if the Medal of Honor recipient is black, well, I guess there's a problem, apparently. Here's The Guardian. The U.S. Defense Department webpage celebrating an Army general who served in the Vietnam War and was awarded the country's highest military decoration has been removed and the letters DEI added to the site's address. On Saturday, U.S. Army Major General Charles Calvin Rogers' Medal of Honor webpage led to a 404 error message. The URL was also changed, with the word medal changed to DEI medal.
My fucking God.
Jesus. Rogers, who was awarded the Medal of Honor by then-President Richard Nixon in 1970, served in the Vietnam War, where he was wounded 3 times while leading the defense of a base.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like he earned that Medal of Honor. It's a rare distinction, and he earned it. And actually, I mean, you look into this more, and the details are even crazier. This guy, over the course of like 12 hours, just kept on fighting while continuing to get injured over and over again, while completely outnumbered, and while most people would have asked, hey, I'm done, get me a medic. He just kept on fighting, and his perseverance seems to have saved a bunch of his squad mates' lives.
Give that man back his Medal of Honor.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess in the eyes of Pete Hegseth, he also earned a DEI medal that day, which supersedes the other medal. And it's pretty clear why. The description on Google search for the webpage that was removed reads, Army Major General Charles Calvin Rogers served through all of it. As a black man, he worked for gender and race equality, while in the service.
Yeah, that'll do it.
The details of what exactly he did in terms of gender and race equality, they're not clear, but it's, I would say, probably safe to assume that as a high-ranking black officer in the 1970s, he probably wanted to see that other
What a fucking Chad. What a Chad. What a Chad hero. We love you, man.
black people and women and other minorities receive opportunities for advancement that they were otherwise being denied. I would assume that's what happened here. That's good. That should be celebrated, unless it is literally not something that the military supports anymore.
It's crazy that the United States doesn't want to be proud of this.
Yeah.
It is an astonishing feat. A perfect example of someone serving their country in the bravest, most patriotic way possible. Not that I agree with military intervention or anything like that. I'm just saying
Vietnam.
I'm just saying as an example of what you would think is an American.
Right. Like it's so, I always say this, like, I'm the last person you want to ask about this kind of shit.
Yeah.
But like, it's wild that I seem to have more respect for the troops.
Yeah,
than
like,
these people who
people like me and these guys, these lefties, all of us have way more respect for the fucking military and our history than these motherfucking right-wingers and these fascist collaborators, these Nazi wannabes, these fucking incel, Christian nationalist, white supremacist weirdos.
ever shut the fuck
Hell,
up
I'll
about
even stand if they're over 50 years old and they do a thing at a sporting event. Under 50, I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, Pete Hegseth has certainly repeatedly made his position clear on women serving in combat roles.
They should be getting me a beer.
Maybe he feels similarly about desegregation. Someone should ask him. It's not a question that would be coming out of the blue.
Yeah. Get him a beer or two first, and then ask him.
Yeah, get him a little. I mean, he's probably already a little liquored up.
Yeah, he's at a base 0.6.
Yeah.
He's one beer shy of not being.
Guys,
able
I'm gonna
to
go grab
drive,
some
and that's
water.
intentional.
I'm thirsty as fuck.
He knows his limits.
He does.
I can operate fully at 0.6. Anyways, while we're on the topic of military heroes whose only crime was not being white, this week the DEI label also came for the Navajo code talkers of World War II.
What the fuck?
We used to make movies about these heroes.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage. It's
The Wind Talkers?
Yeah, it's a really cool story.
Yeah.
About a very crucial thing that helped us win the war in the Pacific.
Unique to our geographical region.
Yeah.
And
and like almost like an allegory for, in a very small way, righting the wrongs of the past and coming together as a country, a pluralistic country, to take on a common enemy.
I don't think so.
No, woke.
Here's the Arizona Mirror. Prominent Native American figures in U.S. military history have been erased from the U.S. Department of Defense's website as part of the sweeping effort stemming from President Donald Trump's executive order banning diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Department of Defense website removed articles featuring details about the Navajo code talkers, Navajo men who served during World War II and used their language as a secret code in battle, along with U.S. Marine Ira Hayes from the Gila River Indian community, who helped raise the flag during the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II.
Should have been a white man.
Navajo code has absolutely nothing to do with DEI because Navajo code was a weapon. Navajo code talker Peter McDonald said in response to the removal during an interview with the Arizona Mirror. McDonald, 96, is one of 2 living Navajo code talkers. He served in the South Pacific as a code talker and in North China with the 6th Marine Division.
And that's like one of the craziest things is like, yeah, some of these guys are still alive.
Yeah, by the way, you can just go ask them.
Can you imagine being like 96 and having to like, wait, what? They're doing what?
I've been deleted.
Yeah. The Navajo code talkers earned their place in history through their courage and sacrifice, giving their lives in defense of this nation. Navajo Nation Council Speaker Crystalline Curley said in a press release, erasing their extraordinary contributions from formal military history is not only disrespectful, it is dishonorable. Having articles and information about the Navajo code talkers on the department's website is the right thing, McDonald said, because it provides education for everyone that weapons do not just include guns, but language. He added that their weapon helped preserve America's freedom, and we were happy to use that weapon to help. And we should
despite the history that we had with the American people.
And we should be clear, it's not just that they facilitated, like, secure communications. Like, these guys were on the front lines in the Pacific in some of the like most fucked up battles during the island hopping campaigns. Like, they were putting their lives on the lines. They weren't just talking on the phone, relaying information between units. And
even if they were, not that they were, but like
And I want to be fucking clear about this. If the U.S. military had come to these guys and asked them to do this, and they had said, no, go fuck yourselves, they would have been morally completely in the right to do so.
Yeah.
They had no fucking obligation to this country whatsoever.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, this is the literal opposite of any definition of DEI that isn't simply acknowledging that minorities exist and do things. So you must conclude that that is, in fact, what they're talking about when they talk about DEI.
They've been telling you now for months. They've been showing you perfect examples.
These people played a crucial role in the U.S. victory in the Pacific. And, in the case of the Iwo Jima guy, he appeared in maybe the most iconic photo in U.S. military history.
Damn.
The only reason to minimize or erase any of it is they weren't white, and you don't like that. And I mean, in all the examples, Jackie Robinson, the general, the Iwo Jima guys, the code talkers, I mean, these are people who were living in a country that had a long history of killing and enslaving them and was in many ways still actively persecuting them. But they still chose to fight for that country. And sure, you can say, almost certainly correctly, that this only happened because lazy automated keyword searches.
Yeah.
We would have never done that. It's just the keywords. But that still means that a high-level decision was made to label anything that mentions race or gender too much, or at all, as DEI, regardless of any other context.
And we've spoken in the past couple of weeks about how that has affected actual government systems because they're taking out inclusion and keywords that...
Yeah. And, I mean, it's almost arguably worse to just do an automated keyword search than if they had gone through and done this manually, because it shows how little they care about any of these people and what they did.
Yeah, they give no fucking shit. They give little zero shit about anybody's life, about history, about morality.
What they mean for this country. It's fucking gross, and it pisses me off.
It's extremely infuriating, especially the changing of the link to DEI medal. It's happening, folks. Anyways, moving on now to some of the other various ways this administration is actively making shit worse. Let's start with RFK Jr.'s war on health. Here's KFF Health News. National Institutes of Health officials have urged scientists to remove all references to mRNA vaccine technology from their grant applications, two researchers said, in a move that signaled the agency might abandon a promising field of medical research. The mRNA technology is under study at the NIH for prevention and treatment of infectious diseases, including flu and AIDS, and also cancer. It was deployed in the development of COVID-19 vaccines, credited with saving 3 million lives in the U.S. alone, an accomplishment President Donald Trump bragged about in his first term. A scientist at a biomedical research center in Philadelphia wrote to a colleague, in an email reviewed by KFF Health News, that a project officer at NIH had flagged our pending grant as having an mRNA vaccine component. It's still unclear whether mRNA vaccine grants will be canceled, the scientist added.
NIH officials also told a senior NIH-funded vaccine scientist in New York State, who does not conduct mRNA research but described its efficacy in previous grant applications, that all references to mRNA vaccines should be scrubbed from future applications. Scientists relayed their experiences on the condition of anonymity for fear of professional retaliation by the Trump administration. Probably a good call. A senior official at the National Cancer Institute confirmed that NIH Acting Director Matthew Memoli sent an email across the NIH instructing that any grants, contracts, or collaborations involving mRNA vaccines be reported up the chain to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
My man's name is Matthew Memoli. Matthew Memoli, hey!
Office and the White House. Memoli sent a similar message ahead of the agency canceling other research, such as studies of vaccine hesitancy. Memoli's email on that topic bluntly stated that NIH was not interested in learning why people shun vaccines or in exploring ways to improve vaccine interest and commitment. The National Cancer Institute official, who also spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisals, said that it is reasonable to assume mRNA vaccine work is next.
And this is especially terrible because, as the article notes, mRNA vaccines have tremendous potential for treating a bunch of deadly illnesses. And we should point this out. The mRNA development and research has been going on for decades at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of a small miracle that
It was already almost ready to go when COVID hit, and they were like, all right,
They just
time
needed
to
to push it over the finish line. Yeah.
COVID was the inspiration to finally like push this through and get it working. It's something that if it continues on in development, like they say, could potentially be a cure or treatment for stuff that we've been trying to treat and cure since the dawn of medicine.
A lot of cancers, a lot of like really fucked up things that otherwise we can't do a whole lot about.
Yeah. There's currently an mRNA vaccine for pancreatic cancer that's in the trial stage, and the results so far are very promising, with survival rates increasing from less than 13% to around 50%.
Wait, so people still
die? Sounds like it doesn't work.
Throw it away. This is science that shouldn't just be getting more attention, it should be getting more funding. But because of all the culture war bullshit around the COVID vaccines, which worked, by the way, and which Trump himself took credit for, and which almost all of your elected officials who are against it have taken,
Yeah.
we're just going to intentionally ignore a new field of research that has massive potential for saving lives because it's tied to this the same way that you obviously can't show the legacy and prestige of black people because simply they're the reason that they're black and got caught up in our keyword search.
All these things, they give me the ick, and that's why they've got to go.
Yeah, there's a...
Hey, ho, ho. This fucking life-changing medical research has got to go.
Wow.
Anyway, shit is bleak, and once again, we are in the impossibly awkward position of transitioning now to an ad read for this episode's sponsor.
If you want the show to stick around, we're sorry, but hey, this is part of the content business. I guess.
Anyway, back to the news now, and this is technically our tech show, and today we have covered U.S. military websites and medical technology.
Yes.
So we're technically pretty on topic, even though it all falls under the category of new political horrors of the second Trump administration.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone would acknowledge that tech has ushered in this administration in a lot of very substantial ways, and
Tech was very central to the first phase of fascism, and
we're hoping it can kill it. It's like when you bonk someone on the head and they change, and you got to bonk them back.
Anyway, in a similar vein, more tech. If the Biden administration succeeded at anything, one thing was appointing a great FTC commissioner who was willing to go after the big tech companies and try to make them follow the damn rules.
It was almost like he made a mistake in hiring this person.
I mean,
it was antithetical to everything else in his administration.
A lot of people within his administration and his party, including a lot of members of Kamala Harris's campaign, were like, okay, even if you win, she's got to go. Lena Khan. She's making it hard for all of our favorite big businesses.
How you know she's doing a great job.
You don't understand. They have to break the law.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all over now. Not only are all of our tech oligarchs firmly in Donald Trump's pocket, the FTC will now be doing their bidding. Here's the New York Times. President Trump fired the 2 Democratic members of the Federal Trade Commission on Tuesday, a rejection of the corporate regulator's traditional independence that may clear the way for the administration's agenda. The White House told the Democrats, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter and Alvaro Bedoya, that the president was terminating their roles, according to statements from the pair. The FTC, which enforces consumer protection and antitrust laws, typically has 5 members, with the president's party holding 3 seats and the opposing party 2.
Members of the FTC and other independent regulatory boards are protected from removal under a 1935 Supreme Court precedent that says the president may not fire them solely over policy disagreements. Ms. Slaughter and Mr. Bedoya said they plan to challenge Mr. Trump's decision in court. Today, the president illegally fired me from my position as a federal trade commissioner, violating the plain language of a statute and clear Supreme Court precedent, Ms. Slaughter, whom Mr. Trump nominated to the FTC during his first term in 2018, said in a statement. Why? Because I have a voice, and he is afraid of what I'll tell the American people. In an interview, Mr. Bedoya, who became a commissioner 3 years ago, said he was worried that an FTC without independence from the president would be subject to the whims of Mr. Trump's business world allies. When people hear this news, they need to not think about me, he said. They need to think about the billionaires behind the president at his inauguration.
Yeah, it could not be more clear. I'm glad he pointed that out, because, like, it's so fucking obvious what's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously Elon's the big one. He wants all of the agencies that regulate what he does.
Yes.
He wants them
the biggest problem
kneecapped, but it's all these fuckers.
The biggest problem with all of this is that just like the people who need to hear this stuff. And it's very obvious when you do see those man on the street interviews where people just ask basic questions and let them talk. Is nobody's hearing about any of this because they're all watching Fox News and Newsmax, which I have YouTube TV, so I have this feature that shows multiple news channels at once, and it's a very disturbing way to consume media.
Sensory overload.
It is. I'm sorry. It is my sacrifice to make. So I have Fox, MSNBC, CNN, BBC. I know, but just looking at the chyrons alone,
It's like news red zone.
yeah, it is. No, it is. And you switch on the thing, and it switches the audio.
Oh God.
Yeah, just the chyrons alone is shocking.
Yeah, the focus is, I mean, in fairness, this is stuff the average person has never had to care about before because
Or never needed to.
previously it's just worked. Not perfectly, but it's worked. Like the FTC might have, sometimes it's more pro-business than other times, but in general it does exist to like serve a specific function. And it seems that the FTC and all these other agencies and departments they don't want that function to be served anymore.
No, it's there's going to be no independence. It's all going to be at the behest of Donald Trump.
We've lived for so long with these agencies doing their jobs that you really take for granted like what shit would be like without them doing their job.
Yes. That's the problem that a lot of Americans have. It's just everything's been working fine.
Yeah.
But, obviously.
I mean, that's the problem of just America.
Obviously, I'm like over exemplifying it.
Americans in general, not just with politics, we take so much fucking shit for granted.
Yeah. Obviously not talking about the larger issues with racism and stuff like that in the country, but as far as like an operating kind of thing, yes, it does suck to see Donald Trump just show the intention that he not only wants to take these things over and install his people, but fully control them and let them do his bidding.
Yeah, like a king.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the bigger picture here, and it's it's bad.
Yeah.
The firings followed an executive order from Mr. Trump last month that sought greater authority over the FTC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and the National Labor Relations Board.
Bro, he's trying to be a dictator, guys. He's trying to be a dictator. Please pay the fuck attention. Pay attention. Pay attention, guys, please. We're gonna die. Oh my God.
President Trump has the lawful authority to manage personnel within the executive branch, said Taylor Rogers, a White House spokesperson. President Trump will continue to rid the federal government of bad actors, unaligned with his common sense agenda the American people decisively voted for. The order required the independent agencies to submit their proposed regulations to the White House for review, asserted a power to block such agencies from spending funds on projects or efforts that conflict with presidential priorities, and declared that they must accept the president's and the Justice Department's interpretation of the law as binding.
Yeah. The common theme with everything that we've covered today is that up until now, all these government agencies and the military and the health departments have been, for the most part, apolitical. There's always been some level of influence from the ruling party, but these are institutions that exist for a clear, long-term purpose that are far beyond the scope of any four-year presidential term. Stuff like making sure that big companies don't break the law, staying on the cutting edge of medical advancements, and not giving off the impression that the military is racist as fuck are all pretty good things. And we think most people would agree.
Yeah, I feel like even if you are conservative, MAGA, Republican, if this were explained to you in clear terms, that it's actually good that we have laws that stop big companies from exploiting people, and it's actually good that we fund medical research to make people live longer.
This gets to the heart of a lot of like problems with America, is that like the most dangerous and outspoken people are the ones that are the most isolated. And it's when you have a sense of community and you know your neighbors and you interact with people around in your community and elsewhere, you do start to realize that you're all in this together, and it would be really great if collectively we were looking out for each other.
I don't need friends. I've got Brett Baer.
He's the only friend I need. Jesus. Anyways, America's just not doing the good stuff, I guess, anymore. The stuff that at least makes us look good. We are turning into the isolationist that is scared of everyone else.
Scared of ourselves.
Yeah, the mirror.
Yeah.
And aside from some people getting the satisfaction of owning the libs, which seems to be a very big motivator, none of this shit is good for anyone. In fact, it's bad. And that's not even getting to all the shit that Elon Musk and his Doge boys have gotten up to over the past 2 months. Now, a small silver lining, though, is that Republican representatives who thought they had pretty good job security, they're having a really bad time whenever they have to see their constituents in person. So as a little palate cleanser, let's watch a few clips of red state Republicans getting their shit chewed out in the past week or so, starting with Chuck Edwards of North Carolina.
Not allowed to cut our job. Take our power. Who the hell is it?
Yep.
Do your job.
Yep.
Stand up to Trump. Do your job that you were sent there to do.
Yep.
To represent us all.
Thank you.
That's nothing to say.
Thank you for that feedback.
I'm a veteran. You don't give a fuck about me.
To be clear, Sheriff,
Let's go.
Wow, yeah, and here's Mike Flood of Nebraska.
I support Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Next question.
Tax the rich. Tax the rich.
Let's talk about this.
Tax the
so
rich.
your proposal to solve
Hey.
this is to tax the rich.
Yeah! Woo! Let's go! Bro.
And here's Harriet Hagman of Wyoming.
Bro, normies are turning into fucking socialists out there. Old people are turning into socialists out there. That's how bad shit is getting in America. That's how bad it's getting in America, dude. That's what we need. Tax the fucking rich. They have way too much power, and they're spending that power on, like, taking over the government. So, tax the rich. Bring out the guillotines. You know what I mean? We got old little. we got old little guillotine there. Ah, it's so cute. He's a cute one. Tax the rich. We don't want it to get bad, so just tax them, please. Do your fucking jobs and tax the rich.
DOGE is not dismantling Social Security. And even with reconciliation, we are not allowed to touch Social Security.
Doesn't matter if you're not allowed to touch it. He's not going through the proper law. He's like cutting it through hackers and taking the money out. It doesn't matter if he's not properly cutting it through like the process. He's illegally hacking into it and taking the money out and firing Social Security staff and firing people.
The work that I have specifically been doing.
Deport
I'm
Elon.
on the Judiciary
Deport
Committee and the
Elon.
Natural Resources Committee.
I worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, helping Wyoming family farmers deal with drought until I was fired a month ago in the mass firings, and despite only having the highest marks in my performance review. In a state where so many farmers rely on government programs for drought and disaster relief, Trump's plans to cut these programs and the people who administer them, coupled with the tariffs, will decimate Wyoming farms and rural communities. What are you doing about that?
Yup.
I disagree.
I disagree with you. What, bitch? This ain't a fucking question. This is a demand. You better fix it.
It's so bizarre to me how obsessed you are with federal government. But
What? Bitch, you are the government. You are the government. She is a part of the government. She's saying, I can't believe y'all obsessed with government so much. What?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? That was pretty satisfying.
And a very clear example of why the heads of the GOP are saying, don't talk to people in public.
These were some of the few that didn't, because they already put out the red light like a few weeks back. They're like, oh, just stop appearing in public. These are some of the few that actually in the past week or so were like, no, I'm going to go see my constituents. I'll explain it to them in clear terms.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to be seeing much of that going forward. But it's just nice to know we're not crazy. We're not fucking in a coastal liberal elite bubble here. Shit is, in fact, bad for a lot of people who live in these areas that, I mean, a lot of coastal elites might assume are just everyone there is walking around in a fucking MAGA hat and loving all this. And to close things out, let's end on another high note. Despite the president and the entire Republican apparatus desperately trying to promote Tesla, just literally shilling it on TV, on the White House lawn.
Fucking Pam Bondi's making quotes about it.
Lutnick was on TV. You got to buy the dip. Now's the best time to buy the dip.
That's the Spirit Halloween guy?
Yep. Lutnick.
Nick Lutnick, yep.
Great new music video, by the way. Despite, they're pulling out all the stops to stop this avalanche of this financial avalanche for Tesla, and it ain't working. The stock continues to be in the shitter, and now the hideous crown jewel of Tesla's lineup is facing a recall for a ridiculous and also terrifying reason.
Yeah, and this isn't an over-the-air recall. Because Tesla boys, they're always like, oh, it's just a software update. Actually, the car's fine.
No, every single Cybertruck needs to go down ASAP.
And I love these because it legally shows you how many they've sold, and it's far less than they would have you believe. Still too many.
I feel like I've seen them all.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's Reuters. Tesla is recalling nearly all Cybertrucks in the United States to fix an exterior panel that could detach while driving, the company said on Thursday.
Yeah, the cars, it kind of falls apart while you're driving.
The latest in a series of callbacks for the pickup truck. The recall covers just over 46,000 vehicles built from November 2023 through February 27th of this year, Tesla said in a filing with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Woke.
And is the 8th recall for the SUV since January 2024. The recall could prove to be a setback for Tesla, whose stock has lost about half its value this year as the electric vehicle maker grapples with rising competition, an aging lineup, and backlash against CEO Elon Musk's controversial role overseeing cuts to federal spending in the Trump White House.
That was quite a lineup of problems.
Tesla is recalling the cars because of the risk of a stainless steel exterior trim panel detaching from the vehicle, causing a potential road hazard and raising
Bro, what the fuck? These billionaires can't make a good product. They need to be... Oh, let me bring the picture up again. Boop. Boop. Tax the rich.
Of a crash, it said. The detached panel may create a noise inside the car, or people may see the panel come loose or break off the car altogether. Tesla said he was aware of 151 warranty claims that might be related to the recall issue, but no collisions or injuries. And
there's people that just have videos of themselves just peeling it off with one finger.
Yeah, there was one of those car YouTubers did like he intentionally destroyed his Cybertruck, and like, yeah, at one point he saw this thing getting like a little loose, and he's just like, let's try one.
He does it like with a finger.
Yeah, he just like pulls it away. He's shocked because it is a piece of stainless steel. It's like a giant blade.
But it's glued on. Yeah,
it's held on entirely by glue.
I love that even in this article, they're like, yeah, people could see it come off, and that might shock them. It's like, no, it could hit the road and then go through someone's fucking...
You could like behead someone.
Yeah.
It's like a giant steel blade hanging off of your car.
Did you see the Tesla tweet where they had to like frantically... respond to what would have been massive privacy implications about the people like hurting their cars? Like, hey,
bro, Teslas are just like giant death mobiles at this point. They're like giant death mobiles, explosive car. They blow up. They could kill anybody. They could cut you. They could kill kids. Run over kids. You can't even see kids from the height of it, and the angle is all weird and shit. Big ass floppy. What's it called? A rain floppy ass big one arm sword wiper. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
There's a reason we got so many cameras on it, and then they put like real funny if you did something, and then they wrote back immediately after that and said, by the way, we don't store any of the footage on the cloud. It's all internal. We would never look at that. And then every reply after that was people linking to the Reuters article from like 2 years ago, where multiple Tesla employees were like, oh yeah, we've seen all kinds of crazy shit. We see people having sex in the backseat.
I remember we covered that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, fuck.
Interesting.
Anyways, that's it for this episode. We will, of course, be back for more. But in the meantime, please make sure that you like the video. Click
Like the video. Click subscribe. Check out Internet Today. They are beautiful people. I love this guy's beard. This guy's a cool, tall man. Cool tattoos. Hey, is that Tren de Aragua? Tren de Aragua. He has tattoos. Él tiene tatuaje, mira. Él tiene tatuaje. El Tren de Aragua. Oh, my God. Deport him to El Salvador. Thank you, guys. Love you guys so much. Let's move on. Chuck Schumer has to fucking go, dude. Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the Democratic Party, has to fucking go. He's a weak, old piece of shit. He can't do anything. We need young blood in there. We need progressive values in there. Bye-bye, Chuck Schumer. Let me update the text. Chuck Schumer. More like Cuck Schumer. Ha ha ha. More like Cuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer has to go. That's what I'm going to call it.
Chuck Schumer was scheduled to do a book tour in a number of cities on a book that he has authored on anti-Semitism. He has just canceled that book tour, we are learning, because of protests that were scheduled from activists.
Get fucked. Why are you doing a book tour when America's about to fall into fascism? And, like, all you're going to talk about and you're anti-Semitic. All you're saying is pro-Palestine at that point. Like, you're just going to be like, all these protesters saying from the river to the sea. That's not nice. That is anti-Semitic. It's not. It is not anti-Semitic. Stop it. Stop fucking lying. You Zionist fucking shills.
Groups who wanted to go after his decision to agree and allow the government funding bill to go forward to avoid a government shutdown. They were furious at his decision to do that.
You heard that right. Chuck Schumer's book tour was canceled because there were plans to protest him because he capitulated to Donald Trump. As Emma Vigeland pointed out, there were events scheduled in Baltimore, New York City, D.C., Philly, and San Francisco where you could pay him $56 to have him promote his book to you, which sounds like an excellent idea if you're an idiot, and people were undoubtedly planning to show up to these book tour events to protest him. But due to his own cowardice, he chose to cancel these events because he didn't want to face the people that he just betrayed. And what's even more insulting is that he's not even being honest about why he canceled his book tour. As Politico reports, the reason given for the cancellation was, quote, security concerns, which is an obvious lie. There are no security concerns. This is why he chose to cancel these events.
Schumer is selling out the people of D.C. and the people of this country. He's selling out working people, young people. He's not standing up.
We are here in front of Chuck Schumer's office to send a clear message that young people want him to stand up. Step up or step aside. Generation is way on you at all. Why are you here? I'm here for all of the students, all the teachers in the schools that I was with who are going to get defunded by the things that are going on. Chuck Schumer needs to stand up.
That right there is the security concern that his team cited. He is a coward who refuses to face his own constituents. That's what this is about. And a couple of weeks ago on MSNBC, he said that he himself planned on doing town halls in red districts, but the entire reason for him doing that was because Republicans like him didn't want to face their own constituents. So it's ironic that he is—
Get out of here, Chuck Schumer, you weak ass culero.
Now in the same boat as these spineless Republicans. And I take it that he's going to postpone those town halls too, since he doesn't want to get reamed by working class people who are going to suffer because of what he just did to them. Now, make no mistake about it, this is a betrayal. I think you all know that, but this is indeed a betrayal, despite what he says. And even Donald Trump took to Truth Social to congratulate him on said betrayal.
Congratulations to Chuck Schumer for doing the right thing. Took guts and courage. The big tax cuts, LA fire fix, debt ceiling bill, and so much more is coming. We should all work together. That very dangerous situation. A non-pass would be a country destroyer. Approval will lead us to new heights. Again Really good and smart move by Senator Chuck Schumer. This could lead to something big for the USA. A whole new direction and beginning.
And said that he had courage and did the right thing. But Chuck Schumer's not alone, because 9 other Democrats also voted for cloture, which paved the way for that disastrous continuing resolution, including Cortez Masto, Gillibrand, Durbin, Hassan, King, Fetterman, Peter, Schatz, and Shaheen.
All these motherfuckers gotta go. All of these motherfuckers gotta go. I'm sorry. All of them have to go. Fetterman, I had my fucking eyes set on you for a while, Fetterman, you brain damaged motherfucker. But everybody else here has to go too. All of you guys gotta fucking go. This is like a Sparta moment, you know, like in the 300 when like they kick the dudes off the cliff. This is how we gotta kick these guys out of the Democratic Party into the fucking ocean. A soft little landing down there too. It's gonna be nice.
And I take it that none of these cowards plan to hold town halls for a while, because they're also going to be too afraid to face their constituents, like those Republicans who don't want to hold town halls as well, because they know if they show up, they're going to get yelled at by constituents because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is representing the people who put them in office. In fact, we know that John Fetterman in particular is dodging his constituents because they've been contacting his office to try to encourage him to hold a town hall, and they're now having to resort to a pressure campaign on a Pennsylvania subreddit since he's refusing to schedule a town hall on his own. I wonder why. But while he dodges his own constituents, it's funny that he's talking tough on television to reporters. Here's what he said when he was asked about House Democrats who were mad about his betrayal.
We've heard Democrats in the House really upset about Schumer's move, the progressive base, also a Democratic base. What do you think it says about the Democratic Party?
I'm terrified to know that they're angry or frustrated. Well, yelling.
Bro, this dude's fucking retarded now. This dude's literally like brain damage. Like just done. Like this dude got like a magic bullet went through his head. There's no damage, but his brain is cooked.
On social media isn't leadership. Okay, I'll be the Democrat that's not going to pander, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you think shutting the government is smart, then I thought you're not supposed to get in a war when there's no exit plan. You know, guess what? They're going to realize that the exit ramp is owned by the GOP.
This man's brain is basically tapioca.
Yeah, dude. What the
and
fuck?
Even though he's trying to portray his capitulation as 4D chess or him being the adult,
my man got forced. My man got like fucking Darth Vader force pushed his brain. God damn.
What he did screws over the people that voted to put him in that position. Let me explain it. Republicans created this continuing resolution without any input from Democrats whatsoever. And by voting for cloture, he effectively voted for that continuing resolution that hurts his constituents. If you shut down the government, you force Republicans to come to the table to negotiate with you, which gives you the chance to at least strip out some of the most harmful provisions. At least try to rein in Doge or Donald Trump.
Knowledge is put to the test in every GMC Sierra. Get 0.9.
But he didn't do that. And now he's mad at the people who are mad at him for bending the knee to fascists. But let's be honest, John Fetterman voted for cloture because he wanted that continuing resolution to pass, despite what he says, despite him voting against the continuing resolution itself. Because if you vote for cloture, you allow it to pass. That's what he did. So let's stop pretending like this so-called opposition party is opposed to the Republican agenda, because they're not. Democrats, for all intents and purposes, are controlled opposition at this point, and their ability to resist fascism hinges on what their donors allow them to do. And I'm assuming that their Wall Street donors didn't want the additional market volatility a shutdown would bring, so they told Democrats to capitulate, and some of them did just that. I'm 99% certain that that's what happened. And I wish that they just admit that, or admit that they agree with the continuing resolution and what Republicans want to do, because the political theater isn't fooling anyone anymore. In fact, to Schumer's credit, he pretty much showed his cards a long time ago when he locked arms with fascists at a pro-genocide rally. That's the leadership to the so-called resistance, my friends.
Mm-mm.
They're locking arms with fascists in support of a rogue state committing a genocide. And to go back to Schumer's book for a moment, that book in and of itself is in service to Trump's fascist agenda. Because if you look at the synopsis for the book on its publisher's page, it says it's about anti-Semitism in America from the 1960s and 70s to present day, and it includes Chuck Schumer's personal experiences, which I think is fine in theory in a vacuum, but if you look at some of the examples of anti-Semitism, you begin to see what this is really about. Jewish synagogues and their congregates are targeted and sometimes killed by extremists. Jewish students are harassed and attacked on campus. Conspiracy theories about Jews have gone mainstream on social media, and debates over Israel have veered into dangerous territory. So he's
Oh my
mixing
God.
actual violent anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, which is dangerous because those are two different things. And he's claiming that Jewish students were harassed on college campuses during the anti-genocide protests, and I'm assuming that he's not even going to bring up the fact that Jewish students were some of the organizers that led those encampments. And I'm also assuming that he's not going to talk about the differences between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And the reason why this matters so much now more than ever is because the Trump administration is targeting students that participated in those anti-genocide protests, and they're invoking anti-Semitism to justify the deportation of these student protesters. One of them, for example, is Mahmoud Khalil. Republicans aren't even arguing that Khalil committed a crime. They're saying that he doesn't deserve due process and should be deported because he led a campus protest that made Jewish students feel unsafe. But in letters to the court on Khalil's behalf, Jewish students said the opposite. One person wrote to the court saying, "I witnessed firsthand Mahmoud's unwavering commitment to protecting Jewish students. When an unaffiliated individual began shouting anti-Semitic slogans, Mahmoud was the first to intervene, immediately de-escalating the situation and ensuring the safety of those."
Yeah, people who are anti-Zionism are not we're not Islam, we're not fucking like racist. We're not like Jew hating and shit. We're not anti-Semitic. Like, we are anti-Zionists. Zionists are right-wing people that believe that the state of Israel can never do no wrong and should be able to expand and grow and become a bigger power. That's what a Zionist is. I'm an anti-Zionist. Fuck Zionist. Same way as, like, fuck Christian extremism. Fuck, Muslim extremism. Fuck all sorts of extremisms. Zionism is a form of extremism, and when we fight Zionism, we're not fighting Judaism. Those are not the same thing.
Was present. This came as no surprise. I already knew that Mahmoud was someone I could trust to stand up for me and my community. So this anecdote explains that what Republicans are using as a justification to punish people like Mahmoud is not actually true. Now, this doesn't mean that there weren't instances of anti-Semitism at these protests. Of course, that's possible. But erasing the participation of Jewish students and portraying the movement more broadly as inherently anti-Semitic was a tactic used by politicians and media to shut down the conversation about what the students were actually protesting, which was Israel's genocide of Gaza. And Chuck Schumer intended on bolstering this narrative with his dumbass book, which is going to provide political cover to Trump's administration, who is currently illegally punishing students for exercising their First Amendment rights. So let's be clear. The reason why so many of these Democrats refuse to stand up to fascists is because they simply agree with a lot of what the fascists are doing, period. And thankfully, voters are finally beginning to see that, which is resulting in support for the party completely collapsing. Just take a look at the party's overall approval rating per CNN.
Americans' favorable views of the Democratic Party brand are at a record low, just 29%. That's compared to 36% for Republicans. It is the lowest ever recorded for Democrats in CNN polling, going back more than 30 years. As you can see, the party's numbers dropping a staggering 20 points.
I wonder why. It's definitely not because of the centrism and the loving of billionaires on the left, or not even the left, but in the center to center left, which is the centrists or the moderates, the people like TYT, the people like Cenk Uygur, the people like fucking Mark Cuban, Kamala Harris. This is why we're losing. People like Joe Biden, all these people that were pro fucking genocide. that were trying to hide it, not talk about it while they were running. This is why we're losing. You need to stand up for something. Anti-genocide, anti-colonialism, pro-workers. Come on. Come on.
Just 4 years. The CNN SRSR's poll also found 57% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters are more interested in seeing their party leaders stop the GOP agenda, compared to 42% who are more interested in cutting bipartisan deals.
And look, I'm sure it's only going to get worse since leadership is bringing down the entire party. And you know it's bad when Nancy Pelosi and Neera Tanden and even liberal influencers like Olivia Giuliana and Will Stancil are condemning Chuck Schumer here. Because I think that as much as liberals and leftists fight within the party, we can all agree that we want somebody who's going to fight Donald Trump and the fascists. That's the bare minimum. So if you won't even do the bare minimum, it's time to go. So, you know, in some ways, it feels like this might be a turning point for the party because there's so much outrage towards leadership in particular. But the question is, how long will the Democratic Party's base stay this mad? Because for years, Democrats have skated by simply because they're not Republicans. So the question is, will the better Democrats actually harness this energy from the base and force the party to go in a different direction? Force the party to go in a different direction specifically by calling for new leadership? Right now, it's clear that the base wants a change in leadership. Groups like Indivisible also are calling for Schumer to step aside. And when you take into account how low the party's overall approval rating is, members of Congress who actually care could use this as an opportunity to get better leadership. And it's clear that they think Chuck Schumer isn't cutting it. For example, Senator Michael Bennet in particular was especially critical of Schumer because of his leadership or lack thereof, as CNN reports.
In one notable moment, I'm told that Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, who has not been shy about his frustration with his party leadership in the past, erupted during one of those meetings. Two sources familiar with the moment tell CNN that Senator Bennet accused the Senate Democratic leadership, his leadership, of having, quote, no strategy, no plan, and no message on this spending.
Yeah, man.
So there's that. Also, Hakeem Jeffries, who himself is facing calls from the base to step aside from leadership, isn't stepping in to save Chuck Schumer.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
Mr. Leader.
And to be clear, even though he didn't say yes, him not saying no is still pretty significant. So the tides have clearly turned against Chuck Schumer, and the better Democrats now have a window of opportunity to act, to take the party in a new direction, to seize on the anger and harness the rage of their base and publicly call for Schumer's resignation now that there's momentum for just that. The question is, will they do that? And the answer seemingly is no. And I say this because Chris Murphy, for example, is one of the loudest Democrats who's in opposition to Schumer's strategy of capitulation, and he urged Democrats to go in a new direction himself after the last election. But when he was asked whether or not he still supports Chuck Schumer in leadership, his answer was very, very disappointing.
Do you think that Leader Schumer is the best person to lead your caucus in this moment?
Senator Schumer certainly can lead this caucus.
Is he the best person?
He can lead this caucus, but we need to have a conversation inside the caucus about whether we are willing to stand up to Republicans.
Do you have confidence in Leader Schumer?
I still support Senator Schumer as leader, but
Oh
I think
my
the
God.
only way that we are going to be effective as a caucus is if we change our tactics, and we have to have a conversation
You loser.
inside our caucus to make sure that we are going to do that.
So he's still supporting Schumer.
Stop.
Despite disagreeing with Schumer's strategy, despite saying Democrats should embrace a Bernie Sanders style of populism after the election, he's saying, let's just keep doing the same thing and hope something changes.
Stop.
Now, to be clear, I have no faith in somebody like Chris Murphy. He himself is a corporate Democrat, but what sets him apart at a minimum is that it does seem like he's willing to fight Republicans. That's like the least thing that we should expect. Like, we shouldn't even have to expect it. It should just be automatically assumed that all Democrats are going to do what they can to save the Republic as Trump threatens the Republic. But yet, let's keep going with Chuck Schumer, the worst possible person for this moment to lead the party. Yeah, but Chris Murphy is not an outlier, because when he was asked about whether or not he'd be interested himself in leadership, he seemed to suggest that the rest of the party wasn't even having a conversation about a change in leadership at all.
Many of your supporters responded online saying you should replace Leader Schumer. Is that something that you would consider? Would you consider that role?
I mean, I don't think anybody's having that conversation right now, what's important is that we meet this moment.
To be fair, he could mean that nobody's having that conversation about him being the leader in particular, but the way that I kind of interpreted that was we're not having a conversation as a party about a new leader, which would be wild if that's not a conversation that they're having right now. And it would demonstrate that even the less bad Democrats who want to fight fascists are still painfully out of touch. Because a leadership change is the bare minimum right now as far as I'm concerned. But even though there's a lot of momentum in that direction, it just seems like, once again, Democrats aren't willing to seize on that opportunity. Even Bernie Sanders isn't explicitly calling on Chuck Schumer to step down. In a tweet about the situation, he writes, quote, "The Democratic Party needs a major transformation. It can no longer be a top-down billionaire-funded consultant-driven party. It must be a multi-generational, multiracial working-class party. In a time of growing oligarchy and authoritarianism, that's the only path to victory." And while I agree with everything Bernie Sanders said there, it'd still be worthwhile to use that opportunity to also call for Chuck Schumer to step down as a senator. I mean, that alone, obviously, isn't going to facilitate the change that Bernie Sanders is calling for, because I think the party's just too corrupt to change at this point. But even a small change, like a new leader, could at least help mitigate some of the damage that Trump is doing if we get a leader who actually is going to fight at least a little bit more than Schumer, which is no fight. But since nobody's willing to come out and say it, what I fear is that anger towards Chuck Schumer is just eventually going to die down, and that this conversation about him stepping down will, for the most part, just go away. Not even going to come up a month from now. And I say that because another Democratic Party traitor, Jared Moskowitz, who recently voted to censure Al Green, was brought on for an interview with the Midas Touch, and the host didn't even bother to ask him about his traitorous vote to censure his own colleague at the behest of Donald Trump. But the commenters, they didn't forget. The comments also brought up how disappointed they were with the host for not bringing up his decision to side with fascists that he's now criticizing in this video. On top of that, in an interview with Richie Torres, David Pakman didn't bother to ask him a single hard-hitting question
Oh my
about
God.
his numerous betrayals, his vote to censure his own colleague Rashida Tlaib, or his vote to send more weapons to a genocidal state in violation of the Leahy Law.
All these weak-ass fucking centrist Democrats, that's what they are. This is why I don't like centrists. This is why I don't like liberals. We gotta work with you fuckers, but, like, you guys are so weak. You guys are weak, bro. Ask the questions that we need to know.
Or about his support for sex pest Andrew Cuomo in New York City's mayoral race. So, I mean, if nobody with influence or power is willing to hold bad Democrats accountable, nothing is going to fucking change. Why even have a platform if you're not going to use it to speak truth to power? I mean, I understand that access is important if you have this influence, but, like, maybe just assume that you're only going to get one interview and use it to challenge people in power. I'm not expecting you to yell at them, but I mean, the bare minimum is asking at least a mildly confrontational question, but we don't even get that from liberal media. That's not mainstream. So, you know, over the years, Democratic Party electeds have learned that their betrayals, they just eventually are forgotten if they just wait long enough. I mean, Andrew Cuomo brought him up. You know, he just waited a couple of years after being a sex pest and after letting people die who were his constituents, who were in elder care facilities during COVID. Just that all water under the bridge, I guess. So it's a problem. And Democrats think that if they just wait long enough, especially seeing how bad Republicans are by comparison, people are just going to forget all of the bad things that they do. That is a fucking problem. That is in part how we got to this point. Because the Democrats are never held accountable for capitulating or outright siding with fascists. They think that you're always going to forgive them for their transgressions because that's always been the case. But now is the time for voters to remember that these people are traitors. And you should never forget that. Now is
Let me see who these motherfuckers are. All right. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Nevada. You live in Nevada. You see this bitch around? Protest her. Run against her. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Oh, this bitch. New York. If you're in New York, you see this bitch? Protest her. Run against her. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York. New Yorkers, protest him. Run against him. Senator Dick Durbin, Illinois. Y'all, protest him. Run against him. Senator Maggie Hassan, New Hampshire. Y'all, protest her. Run against her. Senator Angus King, Maine. Y'all, protest this motherfucker. Run against him. John Fetterman in my state. This fucking piece of shit, I'm always calling him out. I will run against you one day, motherfucker. Just you wait. Protest him. Let's protest him, y'all. Let's run against him. Senator Gary, and he's from Pennsylvania, by the way. Senator Gary Peters, Michigan. Everyone, let's protest him. Run against him if you're in Michigan. Protest him. Senator Brian Schatz, Hawaii. Y'all, protest this bitch. Run against him. Senator Jane Shaheen. What is that? What time? What's just New Hampshire again? Protest her. Run against her. We can't wait no more.
Start reminding these assholes that they work for you, and you're not going to accept their betrayals any longer. And until these Democrats, like the Republicans at those town halls, understand this, they're never going to change. So I'm calling on voters, Democratic Party supporters, to take their power back and run this party the way that they want it to be run. Dictate the terms of this, and don't let them dictate the terms to you. So let this be a reminder that you should never, ever, ever let these Democrats off the hook when they screw you over. But for some levity, I wanted to share a piece of information about Chuck Schumer that truly demonstrates how out of touch he is with his own base. So this Twitter user shared an excerpt from an old profile of Chuck Schumer from The New Yorker, and it talks about his imaginary friends. I'm not joking. Schumer says that he is accompanied everywhere he goes by two imaginary middle-class friends who advise him on all manner of middle-class concerns. Their names until recently were Joe and Eileen. He later goes on to say that they worry about terrorism and about values, and they are patriots. Joe takes off his cap and sings along with the national anthem before the occasional Islanders game. He elaborated that they're not ideologues. They're worried about property taxes. It's the taxes they hate, and that's what Democrats don't get. And they also both defend the CIA's Human Intelligence Program. In other words, this multimillionaire motherfucker is so out of touch, he had to concoct imaginary friends who are middle class to guide his decision making as a member of Congress.
The Baileys!
As opposed to, I don't know, just actually talking
The
to middle
Baileys!
class people. That is the kind of person who is leading the Democratic Party. This is the leader of the resistance, folks. This is who's supposed to protect us from fascist authoritarianism. We are not in good hands. And on that note, Alex, aka LOL Overruled, did an impression of Schumer's resistance to Trump, and I think that he nailed it.
What did he do? You better not do that, Mr. President. He did what? Oh my God. He can't do that. Somebody's got to stop him. Mr. President, you can't do that.
Uncanny. But even though he's joking,
Literally.
I need you to understand that the actual resistance offered by Chuck Schumer is even more comical than that. More comical than a literal parody. Because during Trump's first term, I want to remind you that before another potential shutdown, Chuck Schumer confronted Donald Trump by reminding him about the Pinocchios given to him by the Washington Post.
Oh my fucking God.
Washington Post today gave you a whole lot of Pinocchios because they say you constantly misstate how much the wall is built, how much of the wall is built, and how much is there. But that's not the point here. We have a disagreement about the wall, whether it's effective or whatever. Not on border security, but on the wall.
He literally told Trump about the Pinocchios the Washington Post gave him. What the fuck?
Oh my God.
That's him standing up to Donald Trump. That's literally the best that we get from Democratic Party leaders. So,
the Pinocchios.
I still can't get over it. In conclusion, if this is the resistance, we are all fucking doomed. So call your senator and let them know politely that you want them to call on Chuck Schumer to step down from leadership so we all can survive, maybe a little bit longer. You know, it's not going to solve all of our problems if we do get a leadership change, but almost anyone would do a better job than Chuck Schumer. So even a marginal improvement could make a huge difference at this point. Like, that's how bad things are. But, you know, if not, then let's just have him remind Trump about the Pinocchios that he's going to get again. That'll do it, I'm sure.
Yo, we're fucking cooked, bro.
And click the join button on YouTube to be.
I wonder what is this man's second channel. I want to hear the music. The music. The music? Can I not hear the music? Does he not have multiple channels? I know there's one channel with like music, no? Mike Figueiredo. Doesn't he have fucking music? uh Oh, here it is, y'all.
Josh Parsons will fight to keep our communities safe and help President Trump.
Shut up.
Luigi not happy. Stop Luigi. See you. Bye-bye. I did it. Luigi did it. Good job, Luigi.
Thug life. Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. Malcolm X put a hex on my future.
Hey, hey.
I'm falling victim to a revolutionary song. The Serengeti's clone. Back to put you backstabbers back on your spinal bone. You slit your disc when I slit you my dish. You wanted to diss but jumped on my dick.
Oh yeah.
Got my finger on the motherfucking pistol. Aiming it at the pig. Charlotte's Web is gonna miss you. My issue isn't televising. You ain't gotta tell the wise how to stay on beat because our life's an instrumental. This is physical and mental. I won't sugarcoat it. You'll die from diabetes if these other niggas wrote it.
Keep your mind on your mask, kid. Horror form a classic, it's drastic. Villain hydrochloric acid, splashed. Pulling out, reached and blasted. Pow. Pinstripes on a basket. New York style, wow. Cheddar grab easy. It's only entertainment though, when thought out completely. Sad demeanor could get him the dropping bag cleaner. Master schemer. Expert in that arena, puffin' Pasadena. He read the grass was greener.
Hey.
Riding with my twin and and we all look good as fuck. She said she my eye, but I don't know her. Had to look her up. I know that I'm rich, but I can help it, bitch. I'm hood as fuck. I've been on these bitches next so long, sometime I forget stuff. I can put you in my business. You might wish me dead tomorrow. Bitches be on dick today, sing every word of up tomorrow. Bitch, I still got cases open. Keep your mouth shut tomorrow. Play with me today, then get some sleep. You know it's up tomorrow. Fake bitch, that's why my friend fucked on your nigga. Both you bitches pussy, I think y'all should scissor. She bought a chain, I bought the same one, even bigger. She throwing shots, that's how I know I got a trigger.
Oh. Ouija, that sounds so funny.
We don't have anything on the way of motivation yet. The police are saying they think it could be a targeted hit.
That was lit. Oh, no. Hey, Ouija. Next topic is gonna be Elon Musk. Elon Dick Riders, basically. Riders are melting down. Let's check it out, y'all.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping.
Hey.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, you know, and take out. Just telling you.
Please don't vandalize. Don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so.
Unsurprisingly, those jokes set off a firestorm on Twitter, and the billionaire bootlickers and dick riders came out in full force to collectively clutch their pearls and condemn these atrocious attacks on poor Elon Musk's beloved company. For example, in response to Tim Walz's comments, Greg Gutfeld of Fox News wrote, "The definition of envy. As a man saves 2 astronauts, another lesser man seeks to destroy that man's company. Do you need any more proof that the Democratic Party is no longer a party of men?" And in a melodramatic post from Libs of TikTok, a stochastic terrorist whose fiance left her, she says thousands of Tesla owners were doxxed and threatened. Dozens of Teslas were set on fire and vandalized. A bunch of Tesla dealerships were targeted with violence. Tim Walz hasn't condemned this coordinated domestic terrorism. Instead, he's practically celebrating and egging it on. Evil. This lady literally incited bomb threats against a children's hospital, so I don't think she's the best person to condemn others for inciting domestic terrorism. Ted Cruz chimed in saying, "Small, petty, vindictive, evil bastard." My Ted Cruz impression is not very good. "Represents today's Democrats well. Brother, you endorsed Trump after he called your wife ugly. I rest my
Literally.
case." Dilbert's racist creator Scott Adams says, "This is wrong on such a deep level. Republicans should use it as a campaign theme. Democrats destroying great American companies." White supremacist Charlie Kirk chimed in saying, "You are a sick, disgusting person. You haven't created anything in your life except overseeing the downfall of Minneapolis and giving tampons to young boys. You are cheering for the downfall of American jobs and innovation." Mike Cernovich adds, "If you had any doubt about what they would have done to this country, which you shouldn't have had, you have more confirmation." I don't even know what that means. Why? Because he's making a joke about Tesla. Clay Travis says, "Tim Walz brags about Tesla's stock price falling. Democrats are now rooting against one of the most successful companies in American history, an electric vehicle company. Oh no, because they're mad. Elon Musk is cutting waste and fraud. True insanity." CNN's resident idiot Scott Jennings added, "During the campaign, financially illiterate buffoon Tim Walz bragged about owning no stocks or bonds. His interaction with the market now is to cheer for an American company to fail in the hopes that 80,000 American workers will lose their job. Says the thought of it gives him a, quote, boost." Now, Elon Musk himself decided to chime in and said, "Sometimes when I need a little boost, I look at the J.D. Vance portrait in the White House and I thank the Lord." That honestly sounds low-key gay to me.
That's gay
But
as
there's more,
fuck.
because the literal House Judiciary Committee Twitter account
That sounds like the gayest thing ever. Imagine I was like, when I'm upset, I go home and I stare at this picture of the neighbor. He looks beautiful and buff and sweat on his brow from cutting a tree. It replenishes me. That's literally J.D. Vance or whatever the fuck Elon said.
Condemned Walz as well, writing, "Democrats are cheering for American companies to fail. Disgusting behavior." Hey, do you want to know what gives me a boost aside from Tesla's falling stock prices? Their tears. You know, maybe we should get one of those mugs that says conservative tears. You know how they have the mugs that say liberal or leftist tears? We should get one of those because it seems like it doesn't take much to
Give me
trigger-
the fucking tears. I'm gonna slurp it up.
these snowflakes these days. I mean, they're in control of the entire country, and yet they're still crying because what? Some people are making jokes at the expense of the.
My camera can't. It lags from the power emanating from my lips as I suck them right-wing tears.
World's richest man. How sad.
Floating in crypto tax
Fuck.
confusion.
Shut the fuck up.
Accurate crypto
Fuck
filing
crypto.
easy.
Crypto's shitty. Oh my god, another one? No, girl. No.
How pathetic do you have to be to get worked up about that? Now, I'm assuming that with regard to Tim Walz, part of the reason why they're so mad about him in particular is because they still haven't gotten over him calling them all weird, which is still very much true, as evidenced by this response to his joke. And even though they're suddenly aghast that a politician would root for the downfall of an American company that we all cherish, let's remember what these dipshits spent the last couple of years doing. As Wu-Tang points out, they went after Bud Light, Disney, Apple, Coke, Pepsi, and a million other American companies, all because they said that these companies were too woke or some bullshit. So spare me the outrage. But let's not forget about Jimmy Kimmel, because they're also accusing him of being too mean to Elon Musk, and specifically they're saying that he is inciting terrorism for his obvious joke. And wokeness accuses him of wanting more Tesla attacks, and in the replies, they're calling for Kimmel to be charged for promoting violence. Kyle Becker adds, Jimmy Kimmel virtually encourages his audience to vandalize Tesla vehicles because he dislikes Elon Musk. The audience laughs at this. Ghouls. God, they're so melodramatic. Libs of TikTok says, Jimmy Kimmel is smugly calling for more Tesla attacks. Evil. You really can't make this up. Jimmy Kimmel is openly calling for more terrorist attacks on Tesla. This Epstein client needs to be investigated and arrested. I'm assuming this person voted for Donald Trump and denies that Trump had any ties to Epstein, even though he was on the flight logs like 7 times. I'll never forget that Jimmy Kimmel encouraged violence against Tesla. Okay, let's rein it in, all right? I don't think that I got worked up when these same types of people incited violence against me, also because of a joke that I made. There's just no reason to be this mad about a joke, an obvious joke. But keep in mind that these same people, at best, have nothing to say about their tax dollars funding a genocide in Gaza, but at worst, a lot of them actively cheer it on. So by right-wing logic, you're only allowed to celebrate terrorism if the targets are women and children, but if it's property, don't even joke about that. That's beyond the pale. These people are morally superior to no one. They are brainless NPCs sycophantically defending the profits of a billionaire from naughty jokes. A billionaire, by the way, who doesn't give a fuck about them. They could die and he wouldn't bat an eye. He does not care about them, but they care about his profits this much to where they're getting worked up over jokes. It doesn't get any more pathetic than that. But unfortunately for them, Tim Walz and Jimmy Kimmel are protected by the First Amendment. They say that they care about free speech. We know that they don't. But thankfully, we do have the First Amendment to protect people like them who make jokes at the expense of petulant billionaires. And even though Trump claimed that the Tesla boycott was illegal, the fact remains that it's very much not. And we're allowed to boycott whatever company we want, just like these idiots boycotted Disney and Bud Light. And I shouldn't have to explain all of this to capitalists, but this is how the free market works. I get that Elon Musk's companies mostly subsist off of corporate welfare subsidized by our tax dollars, but if he's no longer able to compete in the free market, even with all of these government handouts—
Get fucked, Elon. Get fucked. I hope you end up bankrupt and broken on the fucking street like the rest of us, you bitch.
I don't know what to say. I mean, that's the market.
Get
It's spoken.
fucked.
Capitalism is a motherfucker sometimes, I know. But I take it that Elon Musk is going to be just fine. Again, he is the world's richest man, and he doesn't need you to white knight for him over jokes. Besides, if you're an Elon Musk dick rider, you shouldn't be mad at people for making fun of him, because weeks ago he said this at CPAC when he was presumably high as balls.
So, I mean, the sort of the left wanted to make comedy illegal, you know?
Legalize
You can't make fun
comedy.
of anything. So there was like, comedy sucks. It's like, nothing's funny. You can't make fun of anything. It's like, legalize
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Tim Walz and Jimmy Kimmel are just doing their part to bring back comedy. So maybe think twice before you engage in this cringeworthy tone policing and woke scolding that you've denounced when the left has done it time and time again. But the reason why I think all of these right-wing bootlickers and dick riders are especially sensitive to jokes about Elon Musk is because last week he tugged on their heartstrings by portraying himself as a victim. So he looked like he literally wanted to cry in an interview with Larry Kudlow last week when he was asked about his companies and how they've taken a hit.
I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean...
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient.
I'm trying to make
That
government
is
more
so
efficient.
sad. Now, this goes without saying, I don't condone property damage, nor do I support these attacks on Tesla. I'm also beaming some additional thoughts into the minds of my viewers so that way they truly understand how distraught I am by all of these attacks. But since he's never faced accountability for anything, I want to take
Signal received. Roger, roger.
some time to explain why he's experiencing this backlash. Not to justify it, but explain why it's happening again. So Elon Musk is an unelected Nazi who is destroying our government. Like his companies, a lot of people rely on the federal government to survive, and him gutting social services materially harms Americans in a profound way. Let's just talk about Social Security, one example of the thing that he's doing to screw over working class Americans. So he's going out of his way to delegitimize the program by calling it a Ponzi scheme and lying about dead people getting checks, and he outright expressed desire to cut programs like Social Security in an interview on Larry Kudlow, the same one that we reacted to. Now, even though he doesn't have the authority to unilaterally take away Social Security from us, he is in a position to kill it incrementally through death by 1,000 cuts. For example, Doge slashed thousands of jobs at the Social Security Administration, which is an agency that was already understaffed. And this move alone puts the entire system on the brink of collapse. It's already faced outages. On top of that, as the Washington Post explains, Doge is pressuring the agency to make additional cuts to get rid of, quote, wasteful spending. And one casualty could be the phone line for Social Security, which would force millions of elderly people who don't know how to use computers to have to use the internet if there's an issue, or force them to go in person at an office, even though transportation is already difficult for elderly and disabled people. To make matters worse, Doge also announced the termination of leases to 45 Social Security office locations, making it even harder to get in contact with somebody at SSA if they have to go in. And Judd Legum of Popular Information details a new memo from the Trump administration that aims to implement changes that would cripple the program, making it more difficult to collect Social Security benefits if you plan on retiring soon. So that's part of the reason why there's this backlash. This is a benefit that Americans paid into their entire lives. So if you fuck with their money, don't be surprised when they fuck with yours too. And this is just one issue. We haven't even touched on him firing veterans, firing thousands of government employees at agencies like the IRS, which is going to delay their tax returns that they rely on. And ironically, all of these cuts decrease government efficiency. So it's not even accomplishing what he says it's accomplishing. But the Doge cuts aren't just being felt here at home, they're also being felt around the world. And if you just look at one cut at one agency, you can see how devastating it is. So let's look at HIV medication, for example. The amount of people affected by this is huge. This visualizer from the New York Times shows how many people per year are going to be affected by cuts to USAID's treatment for HIV and AIDS. Each dot represents 10 people. And as you scroll down, you begin to see just how quickly that number grows to the point where a total of 1.65 million people could die within a year without the HIV treatment that they relied on from USAID. And when you scroll back up, you begin to get even more perspective about the massive amount of people that this one cut is going to affect. And the article explains how it costs less than 12 cents per day to keep somebody with HIV alive in a developing country like South Sudan. And multiple people have already died, and more will continue to die unnecessarily because of these cuts that this one man is making. And again, this is just the impact of one cut. When you zoom out, and you look at all the other cuts that he's making across the agency, the impact that he's having, the disaster that this is causing is monumental. It is truly unfathomable. And yet this robber baron has the audacity to whine and cry victim and claim that he's never done anything wrong, only productive things, as if we don't see through the bullshit. The only people who are fooled by this are the sycophants and dick riders and bootlickers that we're making fun of in this video.
Yup.
But in that same interview, he claimed that the reason why he's facing this backlash is because Americans are bad people, not him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really come as quite a shock to me that there's this level of really hatred and violence from the left. I always thought the left, or the Democrats, were supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, they're firebombing dealerships, they're firing bullets into dealerships, they're smashing up Teslas. Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful.
That's sad. Poor cars.
I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged. There's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and I think there are larger forces at work as well. I mean, I don't know who's funding it and who's coordinating it, because this is crazy.
Oh, George Soros. Oh, mental illness. Oh, are they also on ketamine? These people attacking my dealerships? Because I'm on ketamine. I'm Elon Musk.
I've never seen anything like this.
Every accusation is a confession. What fraudulent payments are you stopping exactly, Elon? Was it the Social Security payments to Leonard Johnson, an 82-year-old Seattle resident who saw his Social Security temporarily cut off after Doge declared him dead? Was it 8-year-old Nicole Dang, who unnecessarily died of AIDS? Or a single mother and her 5-year-old son both died of AIDS? Or 10-year-old Peter Donde? Or the 145 orphans that this man is working with in South Sudan who are now dying because of these cuts that you're making? Are these the fraudulent payments that you're talking about, Elon? Because from my perspective, it seems like the only fraud is you, the richest man in the world, cutting off life-saving aid to the poorest people in the world under the pretense of cutting costs while you rake in $8 million a day from government subsidies yourself. So spare me the tears. You're not the victim. You're a victimizer, and it's why people all over the world are turning on you. It's why people are boycotting your companies, because they see what you're doing and they see right through you. It's why your approval rating keeps tanking to the point where you're now bringing down Trump's approval rating too. And it's why this is the reaction that you receive when you're brought up in town halls across the country.
I support Elon Musk and the Department of Government
Boo!
That's what Americans think of you, Elon Musk. It's why we want to tax away your billionaire status and reclaim the money that you stole from taxpayers. And on that note, let's go back to that same town hall to see what else they said about rich people.
Tax the rich. Tax the rich. Tax the rich.
Okay, let's talk about this. So your proposal to solve this is to tax the rich.
Yeah,
they're talking about
crazy,
you, Elon Musk. You're not a billionaire because you're smarter or work harder than your employees. You're a billionaire because you exploited the
That
labor
is so
of your
beautiful.
employees and pocketed the profit.
I love all that. Inject that shit into my veins. I need it more. I need it more.
Made for your companies. Why are CEOs the only ones getting richer when companies do well? I mean, Americans are more productive than ever, yet they're not reaping the benefits of their hard work. Why is that? It's because oligarchs like you bribed politicians to rig the economy against the rest of us. And now you're making all of these cuts to federal agencies to finance even more tax cuts to you and your rich buddies. We're being robbed, and finally Americans are waking up to the reality that it's not trans people or immigrants or black and brown people who's causing all of our problems. It's modern day robber barons like you, Elon Musk. And I, for one, am ecstatic about our collective awakening, and I hope it continues. And I'm going to keep exercising my First Amendment right to call for the continuation of this Tesla boycott. And I'm also going to keep shitting on Elon Musk and all of his fucking companies relentlessly. Because as an American, that's my fucking right.
Yes.
And the only thing he and his dick riders can do about that is cry. So keep crying, because we're going to keep doing it.
Let's go. Ew. Whoa, Ouija! Hey!
Oh yeah.
Ouija!
See you. Bye-bye. Good job.
That's so funny, bro. I love that. Ouija! What else we got? What else we got? Oh, yeah, they're deporting motherfuckers already. They're deporting white people. I'm not safe no more. They're deporting white people. I mean, I'm Latino too, but they're deporting white motherfuckers. Canadians, Germans. Oh, my God. It's getting crazy, y'all. They're deporting everybody. Let me update the topic real quick. Everyone is being deported. Bro, citizens, non-citizens, green card, visa, everybody. Everyone. Let's continue. No! No ads! There we go.
When Trump was campaigning on mass deportation, he never specifically said that he'd only target criminals. He did, however, say that he would target them first, but it was always clear that he intended on expelling all undocumented immigrants and even talked about expelling some legal ones, because by his logic, all undocumented immigrants were definitionally criminals since they were here illegally. The problem with this line of thinking, however, is that most undocumented immigrants don't hop the border contrary to popular belief. They come here legally and overstay their visas, which is a civil violation, not a criminal offense. Therefore, they are not criminals. Regardless, nobody wants to be undocumented, but they're forced into that situation, often through no fault of their own, because our system is completely broken, and it makes it very difficult for anyone to obtain permanent residency. And even if you do it the right way, sometimes that's still not good enough for Republicans. Trump campaigned on deporting legal Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, because they obtained legal status through the Biden administration, which therefore makes their residency illegitimate in his eyes. But regardless of whatever bullshit justification they use, it's clear that the Trump administration isn't just targeting criminals. They're targeting law-abiding, tax-paying immigrants as well. And the reason why they want you to think that they're only targeting criminals is so that way you believe that their deportations are warranted and just. But regardless if they're criminals or not, all of them are entitled to due process. And the fact that so many people, both immigrants and citizens, have had their constitutional rights violated in service of mass deportation is deeply alarming. And the fact that so many Americans don't seem to care about that is also alarming for different reasons. But a lot of people, including Trump's own supporters, didn't expect things to be this bad. And they certainly didn't expect their loved ones to be caught up in this mess. But now some of them are finding out the hard way that when Trump said mass deportation, he didn't just mean the bad immigrants. He meant all immigrants. And an individual named Bradley Bartell, who voted for Donald Trump, is realizing that his vote may have doomed his own wife, Camilla. And I want to talk about their story because I think it's important. Lauren Villagran of USA Today reports, Bradley Bartell and Camila Munoz had a familiar small-town love story before they collided with immigration politics. They met through mutual friends, had a first date at the local steakhouse, married after 2 years, and were saving to buy a house and have kids. Munoz was already caring for Bartell's now 12-year-old son as her own. But last month, on their way home to Wisconsin after honeymooning in Puerto Rico, an immigration agent pulled Munoz aside in the airport. "Are you an American citizen?" asked the agent. She answered no, she wasn't. She's from Peru, but she and her husband had taken the legal steps so that one day she might get U.S. citizenship. Before agents led her away, Munoz pulled off her wedding ring, afraid it might get confiscated. She shoved it into her backpack and handed it to Bartell. He shook as he watched her disappear. He thought, what the fuck do I do? He saw her as a funny, caring, hardworking woman who came legally, not one of the—
This guy's a fucking bitch. This guy's a fucking loser. I hope this woman divorces this man, or like, don't date. What are you doing, lady? This guy's a fucking psychopath. He does not regret his vote. This dude says he did not regret his vote for Trump after this happened. He is a cult leader. He's a cult member, not even a fucking leader. Divorce this man and run away, lady.
the illegals who the president he supported promised to deport. It took days for Bartel to find his wife after she was detained at the airport. It was nearly a week before Munoz appeared in the ICE detention system. Her name finally turned up in an online locator assigned to a privately run detention center in Louisiana. On a video call, her black curls hanged askew. She wears a tan uniform reflecting her lack of criminal record. Bartel worries about his wife. Emotionally, I'm concerned for her, he said. It can't be easy being trapped in a room with 100 other people. They don't have anything in there. It's just so wasteful. Now I want to pause right here to give you some additional context because like other immigrants, her status changed through no fault of her own. So she ended up overstaying her visa because she couldn't leave the country because flights were canceled and the border was shut down due to COVID-19. So naturally, she had to support herself. So she got a job working at a farm. She ended up meeting her husband at some point and decided that she wanted to stay because she ended up building a life for herself here. And this happens all the time. Immigrants move here legally, create lives for themselves, fall in love, have children, and then their status changes. And then they're forced to choose to either give up everything that they've built for themselves here or risk it all and stay in the country and try to find some way to stay legally. Any human being in this predicament would make that same decision. Anyone would. I would, you would. It's the human thing to do. That's what Bartel's wife decided to do. And she didn't do anything wrong. These people who stay here and they overstay their visas because they built lives for themselves and can't find a way to stay legally, that's not inherently bad.
Why are Wall Street and the big banks scared of the AI boom? Because now regular retail traders have access to the same type of tech that the banking institutions previously had.
What does that do to you? How does that harm other people? It doesn't. But yet, she's being punished because people like her husband voted for a man who doesn't think people like her deserve to be here. And on that note, the article continues, both of them have been thinking a lot about Bartel's vote for Trump. Yeah, I fucking bet. I knew they were cracking down, he said. I guess I didn't know how it was going down. He imagined the administration would target people who snuck over the border and weren't vetted. But his wife, they know who she is and where she came from, he said. They need to get the vetting done and not keep these people locked up. It doesn't make any sense. In other words, it's not like he was completely ignorant. He had some idea that a crackdown of sorts was coming. He just mistakenly thought that it was about whether or not the immigrants were vetted and not vetted, which doesn't really make sense. I don't know why he thought that because Trump was very clear that he wanted to deport all immigrants, including some legal ones. So I'm not sure why he didn't take the time to look into this further, but I mean, what do you say? I don't know what to say about things like this. I swear to God, the profound stupidity of the average American never fucking ceases to amaze me. This is why we're one of the only developed OECD nations that doesn't have universal health care or mandatory paid sick leave, because our collective idiocy makes brainwashing us so fucking easy. We are so easy to take advantage of because of how brainless we are as a fucking society.
True.
Like, they don't even have to try. Listen, Reagan literally told an entire generation of Americans that we have to give tax cuts to rich people because their wealth would trickle down. And most Americans believed it. Many still believe it, even though that philosophy has led to a level of income and wealth inequality that has surpassed the Gilded Age. They still think that the wealth is going to trickle down someday, anytime now. I mean, it's hard to not feel hopeless when so many Americans are uniquely susceptible to getting duped by politicians and con men, quite frankly. I don't know what to say. And when it comes to immigration personally, you know, if I wasn't sure whether or not a xenophobic presidential candidate's mass deportation policy would affect someone that I love, I probably would just sit that election out. Is that so hard to do? Is it so hard to just not vote if you're not really sure? I mean, even if you weren't sure whether or not your wife would be directly affected, did you not think about whether or not the xenophobic culture that Trump was fostering would maybe harm her indirectly? I mean, even if she's not deported, things have gotten so bad, the vitriol towards immigrants have gotten so bad that Republican congressional candidates are proposing mass executions of immigrants. I mean, it's been clear for a while that this fascist party was getting increasingly Hitlerian over time, so even if you're ignorant of history and don't really follow politics too closely, did it even occur to you once that the increasing hostility towards immigrants might be a little bit bad for the person you fell in love with, even minimally? Maybe even if it just affects her on a mental level, is that not enough for you to say, I can't support this? Did you not see any red flags? I mean, Jesus Christ. And it's already bad enough that his wife has to suffer the consequences for his stupidity, but to make matters worse, other people have to suffer because of people like him who don't do any fucking research. But here's some examples of other innocent immigrants like his wife who've also been detained. A woman in her 50s who's lived in the country for more than 30 years and is married to a U.S. citizen. A woman in her 30s with proof of valid permanent legal residency whose father and siblings are U.S. citizens and who first came to the U.S. as a teen. A European woman in her 30s engaged to a U.S. citizen who overstayed her visa when she was 21. A woman engaged to a U.S. legal permanent resident with whom she has lived for 9 years. I don't know how detaining or deporting any of these women makes the country better. How does this make America great again? Does their absence suddenly bring down the cost of eggs? Does it make the cost of living cheaper? I mean, these are rhetorical questions, sure, but we also have to come to terms with the fact that a huge portion of the population, they're not ignorant. They would happily doom themselves to perpetual economic austerity just to fuck over immigrants and marginalized people, because America isn't just plagued by stupidity, it's also plagued by cruelty and a deep, deep racism and xenophobia that we've never gotten rid of. It's always been there, but there are certain times where it's more implicit as opposed to explicit, but now it's bubbling up to the top, and all of the problems of society are being blamed on immigrants and trans people and DEI, and I just feel like if your bullshit detector doesn't go off and you just accept that, oh, the immigrants are the problem when people at the top are making record profits, when CEOs are buying their 7th mansion and 4th yachts, the fact that you blame people with no money and no power, I mean, I just kind of feel like you're kind of dumb if you just accept that and you don't question that narrative at all. And part of the problem with mass deportation in particular is that you can't pull something like that off unless you violate human rights and deny people of their constitutional rights. And we're not just talking about immigrants. For example, civil liberties groups in Chicago like the ACLU are accusing the Trump administration of violating the constitutional rights of 22 people just in this state. This includes 54-year-old Julio Noriega, a Chicago-born U.S. citizen who was arrested by ICE after buying pizza. It also includes 47-year-old Abel Orozco Ortega, who was detained without a warrant outside of his home. Turns out the federal agents who were questioning him were looking for his son, but ended up arresting him instead. And again, this is just in Chicago, but it's not the first time that they've arrested the wrong person or detained a U.S. citizen or a veteran. And none of this is surprising. And even though the Trump administration is claiming that they're only going after criminals, that's just factually incorrect. Earlier this week, the president of El Salvador announced that he'd received 238 Venezuelan immigrants deemed criminals by the Trump administration. Now, this video showcases the harsh treatment they received. They were sentenced to hard labor, and this detention center in particular is known for torture, literally. But it turns out, as the New York Times reports, that family members of some of the men who were sent here contested the accusation that their family member was in a gang, and as Aaron Reichlin Melnick of the American Immigration Council points out, the Trump administration admitted that the men in that video who were sentenced to hard labor and might be tortured might not have had criminal records after all. Shocker, I know. In fact, we know for a fact that some of them are innocent. Aaron explains that the innocent men who were denied due process includes a tattoo artist seeking asylum who entered legally, a teen who got a tattoo in Dallas because he thought it looked cool, and a 26-year-old whose tattoos his wife says are unrelated to a gang. In other words, they were profiled because of their race and because of the tattoos that they had, which were interpreted as gang tattoos, when in fact, they were not gang-related tattoos, they were just tattoos, but since they were on brown people, they thought, oh, those are gang tattoos, of course, lock them up, that's good enough, don't need to have any trial, no due process, lock them up, throw away the keys, send them to El Salvador, have them tortured, that's justice right there, that's making America great again. What a joke. But on top of that, permanent residents who are here legally, like Fabian Schmidt, are being detained and violently interrogated for no reason whatsoever. Other green card holders like Mahmoud Khalil face deportation simply because he expressed speech that the Trump administration disagreed with. So no due process, no free speech. The Trump administration is just basically locking up or deporting anyone that they deem an enemy. And Trump supporters are perfectly fine with that. They think that this is making America great again. It's just sad that this is where we've come to. And odds are some of the people watching this right now know somebody who's been swept up in Trump's immigration crackdown or knows somebody who could be swept up in Trump's immigration crackdown. So I think it's worth stating again that we all have constitutional rights and we need to know those rights, which include the right to remain silent. You don't have to sign anything if ICE asks you to. You can request a warrant if they ask to search you. Constitutional protections apply to all of us, regardless of citizenship status. And even though the Trump administration has no regard for the rule of law, you will still make their jobs more difficult if you and the people in your community are informed about your rights. And as much as it feels cathartic to bitch and moan about people like Bartell who helped unleash this bullshit on the country, the fact of the matter is that we can't undo the past. He can't take back his vote even if he wanted to. And all of the people like him are going to have to learn the hard way that actions have consequences, unfortunately, and people that they love who don't deserve this are going to suffer because of what they did. But the best that we can do is protect people in our lives and communities and just try to do the best that we can to survive as things continue to get worse. We have to make do with what we have now, and it's not a great situation, but we can't just cower in fear. We have to live our lives, and informing people that we love about their rights, that is something that I think will go a long way. It's not going to make things better, but it's going to help.
Hey.
Step into a world where laundry.
Shut up, lady. I'm gonna open this up. Shut up.
It's not only disheartening, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, we can't keep trying to appease, you know, moderates and right wings. Like, you got to address the issues where they're at, and the Democratic Party continues to refuse to do that.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hi, I'm Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Quo News. We are currently at the Nevada Fight the Oligarchy campaign that is being taken across the country by Bernie Sanders and AOC. You are a volunteer here. What is your name?
My name is Deepika Bhandari.
We now have a billionaire, Elon Musk, who has been given an unbelievable amount of power in the government. He is, you know, pretty much dismantling big chunks of the federal government even as we speak. I think he's getting ready to dissolve the Department of Education, which is, by the way, completely unconstitutional and illegal. He's not allowed to do that, but that doesn't mean he won't. My question, though, is this, on that subject. We now see Republicans at town halls also angry, right? These are many bridges too far for even the Republican voters, but they're being carried out of the Republican town halls. They're being shut down by their elected officials. So it seems that neither party is listening to their constituents. Do you think that's a game changer, the fact that the Republicans are also angry now?
I think it'll be a game changer if we're able, again, to take advantage of the situation and use that to our leverage in terms of mobilization and organization, because being angry is important. Awareness is key. Being angry is important, but that's not enough. You need to channel and mobilize that energy. So if there's a way that we can do that locally, I think that will be the pushing point. That will be the catalyst towards like real change, because, you know, a lot of times like people get angry and then it kind of fizzes out, you know. I don't want to be the person to be like, oh, things are going to get worse before they get better, but that's probably the case here. And maybe they do have to get a lot worse before, like, once it starts hitting your pocketbook, once it starts hitting, like, really affecting your life, that's when people are, you know, people are busy. That's when they feel motivated to actually make a difference.
So let's talk about the current state of the Democratic Party today. How are you feeling about Chuck Schumer and what he just did? How are you feeling about guys like Gavin Newsom having Steve Bannon on his podcast? Like, what's happening here?
Again, I'm not surprised, unfortunately, because I've seen this play out for the last 10 years since I've been following politics more closely, specifically the Democratic Party. It's not only disheartening, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, we can't keep trying to appease, you know, moderates and right wings. Like, you got to address the issues where they're at, and the Democratic Party continues to refuse to do that. I just hope that, and I think it's happening, I hope that more and more people are waking up and seeing the truth for what it is, seeing that the party is not necessarily going to come and save us. The party doesn't necessarily have our backs. We need to push the party, or just we need to push the people in our government to actually, we need to force them to make a change. I mean, I know our own senators have been, you know, I think in the last, in the vote for this, for cloture, for this bill, I think one of our own senators voted for it. A Democrat, I think Senator Masto. And I'm just like, everyone's kind of just fed up of this sort of like, appease.
They need to stop moving right. The Democrats need to stop moving right. They need to move left. They need to become more anti-capitalist, more pro-workers. This right-wing bullshit is not gonna work. This TYT style of this shankturism, shankturism. I'm trying to say centrism, but with jank. This janktrism is not gonna work. Centrism, TYT shit, it's not gonna work. Stop it. Dems need to move left, Hassan style, more Bernie type, more Scandinavian countries. That style of social democracies, that's gonna work. Not this bullshit right-wing Christian nationalist, far-right anti-trans trash. Stop. That's my message.
Style politics, and a lot of it is just to protect their own interests. So, you know, I'm hoping that more and more people wake up. We see that, you know, the party's not going to come and save us. It's essentially, in my opinion, it's two sides of the same coin, right. The Democratic and Republican Party, not necessarily individuals within those parties, but the parties themselves. It's systemic. These are systemic issues. They bleed into our local and state politics as well. So I'm hoping that we can kind of start here from the ground up. More people can kind of realize that this isn't going to fly. You know, our society is going to continue to crumble if we keep playing these games.
Right. And who do you see as the next generation of Democratic Party leadership? Not elected officials, but people that are truly like the voice of the people. Bernie Sanders is getting a little bit older now. It's time for him to maybe pass the baton, so to speak. Who do you think is that next generation? Who would you put on that list?
In like federal politics or anybody? In the movement, yeah. In the movement, I mean, of course, the first person that kind of comes to mind is AOC, right? She's kind of at the, we'll see today, she's kind of at the front seat. She's doing some great things, but I think that more than relying on people like AOC, which she's incredibly important, I think young people, local activists, students especially.
That sounds pretty good up here. And while we're at it, we cannot maintain a federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Got to raise that minimum wage to a living wage at least $17 an hour. And we, all over this country, workers know that if you want decent wages and benefits and working conditions, you got to join a union. But all over this country, corporations are making it harder and harder for workers to join unions. And that's why we need to pass legislation that I just introduced called the PRO Act.
Yeah.
That penalizes any employer that acts illegally when workers are trying to form a union. Together, we're going to stop the cuts to Social Security. Instead of cutting Social Security, we're going to expand Social Security benefits.
The progressive wing of the Democratic Party here was able to sort of fill all the seats with progressives, and there was some backlash from the establishment Democratic Party here on that, and I feel like maybe they sort of abandoned the state at a certain level. Was Trump winning the election this time a shock for you?
Unfortunately for me, it wasn't a shock nationwide, but it was a shock for me to see how quickly we flipped here in Nevada, and specifically in Las Vegas, because we had a lot of support, especially from the Hispanic community when Bernie was running here. We were very leaning heavily, I think, more blue. I know we're a purple state, but we were more blue kind of just a few years ago, and that was a huge breakthrough for us. But I didn't expect to see the whiplash in the way that we saw here. But, you know, I guess it's not surprising, you know, when you, I think one of the biggest, the biggest voter block that was, that converted, right, from like Democrat or Bernie or left-leaning to Trump for this particular general election was Latino men, young Latino men, and there are a lot of young Latino
Not
men
me,
here
though, not
that
me.
I know personally. A few years ago, they
Not
were all
me.
about Bernie, and then I think they went over to Trump, and I think they've just been following a lot of right-wing media, a lot of podcasts, a lot of things. I think it's kind of it's interesting, and it's kind of sad to see the trajectory, but we'll see now what happens. With the administration doing what they're doing right now. There may be some regret, there may be some more organizing, and we're hopeful that we can take advantage of that and use that to our leverage.
Right. So I remember being at the Bellagio caucus, actually. I was here covering that in 2019, and it was amazing because I'd say 82% of the room went to the Bernie Sanders corner from jump. It was just, and it was mainly union people from the culinary union that were pushing for that. So I have to be honest with you, I was a little stunned about this kind of flipping that happened in the capacity that it did. But I do think that the Democratic Party is partially to blame for that in the sense that they sort of abandoned state-level politics in the state. I think that they failed to address income inequality in a meaningful way that contributed to this. And, of course, there's this thing you're talking about where a lot of young men are being radicalized by a very biased right-wing media like Charlie Kirk and whatnot. So that's definitely part of the conversation as well. So what's next for you? What do you think needs to happen in the movement to just actually change some stuff here in the state?
That's a great question. I think the answer right now is really going hard in on community. For us to kind of start organizing locally. Like, for example, I've been trying to tell my friends in different circles, I'm a rock climber as well, so I go climbing out here in Red Rock, and I've been trying to kind of bring awareness to, for example, the recent elections at REI. How they've kind of blocked out other candidates that are actually trying to reform the company, trying to actually advocate for the outdoors.
Explain who REI is for folks.
Sorry, REI is a co-op. They're a company. They sell outdoor gear, and they're nationwide. And they started off.
So is a co-op meaning that's owned by the workers or the people that shop there? Like, how does that?
That's a great question. I think co-op essentially means that like the members have a share or like they have a stake in making decisions for like board members. That's my understanding. Okay. But they're still a company. You know, they still sell gear, and they've kind of gone super corporate-y. They've been union busting for the last few years, especially. They've been cutting workers' pay and hours. They've been doing a lot of shady things, and just recently the CEO endorsed Trump's pick, like for the secretary for the Department of Interior, who's a big gas guy. He's like a big oil and gas guy, and it's a total conflict of interest because he wants to dismantle places like Red Rock Canyon and other public spaces, other public like federally managed land. And so I've been trying to tell the climbing community, look, if you keep supporting companies like REI, that's a direct conflict of interest. I'm trying to go, instead of going like the political route, right, I'm trying to be like, this is going to affect you. We won't be able to climb here anymore if, if companies keep supporting the administration or people like this that are trying to sell off private, public land. So, I think starting with awareness on that level and kind of mobilizing people to kind of especially pick and choose where they put their money, especially local dollars, keeping money in the community rather than supporting chains and things like that. I think that's a great place to start. And just, kind of looking at mutual aid, kind of looking at charities and organizations and supporting each other, especially if the federal government is in shambles, and kind of going from there, like hopefully truly a grassroots movement, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tina. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
Hey, check out Status Quo. Let's move on.
Welcome to the show. As per usual, we are jam-packed today. The hits keep rolling, dog. The hits keep rolling. So in just a second, some good news for you. There's been a lot of these videos floating around, man, of these former MAGA supporters who are just like, holy shit, was I wrong? God damn it, I was off. So I have one of those for you. Then we'll get to a really interesting story. This is a segment that Republican politicians do not want you to see because they did one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen in politics. And of course, it's difficult to get that low. They got that low, so we'll talk about that. We also have anti-Tesla protests exploding across the country. We have the Trump regime is criminally charging climate groups and environmentalists. Telling you, there's no bottom. Then later on, we got to take a visit to our friend Slow Rogan. His show is now officially the Joe Rogan Nazi Apologist Experience.
Oh my God.
I know that might sound over the top, but when you see the video, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Then we'll get to a really dystopian, nightmare-like scenario where a teacher was forced to take down a sign that said, "Everyone is welcome," because in today's day and age, that's controversial. So we'll do that. We got Bill Burr on Israel, and we got more as well. So don't miss any of it, guys. Do me a favor and subscribe below. That helps out big time and costs you nothing at all. And, of course, all the Patreon supporters for this show, keep it functioning. If you'd like to support the show, the Patreon link is below, or you could tip with that thanks button on YouTube. Literally could not do any of this without you guys. This is real independent media, unlike many of the posers and fakers on this platform. I've never had a conversation with an advertiser. I've never done an ad read. I've never talked to a billionaire or a government. You guys fund this show from the ground up, and we have the default ads on YouTube, and that's it, man. So, again, couldn't happen without you guys. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. And let's start. I just wanted to break.
Leopards are eating people's faces, and people are realizing that leopards are eating their face. I forgot to change the Chiron thingy. I was wrong. MAGA voters wake up.
Break the monotony here for a second, right? Every single story we cover is like, oh, look, fascism. Oh, look, a robber baron coup. Oh, look, imperialism. Oh, look, bloodthirsty maniacs. But there's been a lot of these floating around. This is a video of a MAGA supporter who really, like, things just sort of clicked, and she woke up. And now she realizes, like, holy shit, I was, like, legitimately in a cult. Let's watch.
It's time to speak up. Well, it appears the joke's on me. It appears I have been the biggest fool alive. You see, before the last couple of days, I knew that there was a segment of MAGA who just hated, who just wanted to burn the world down, and they don't care who they hurt. In the meantime, I knew there was that section, but I really, really thought that most of MAGA just didn't get it. I really thought they just didn't understand. They didn't understand economics because it's complicated.
No, lady, they're just evil, and they want to destroy the world, and they want us all to go back to a fucking medieval time where black people were slaves, Mexicans were slaves, the U.S. is a giant empire, they rule over the world, no human rights, no rights for women, you're like a medieval fucking peasant. Yeah.
Hadn't studied Project 2025, so they didn't know what was coming. But I really thought when he got in there and started doing the things that hurt so many people, that they would realize, and that they would. But they don't care. Y'all have been telling me this for 2 months, and I kept saying, no, we just have to explain it to them. We just have. Now I know there are a few. and I thank you guys. You make it worth sticking with this. But over the last couple of days, I have realized that the majority of Republicans do not care how many people are hurt. And they are exactly what Palpatine said. They're the ones he was talking about when he said he could unalive someone in public and they would still vote for him. I thought they just wanted lower egg process. I thought they were struggling in the economy and it was hard and they wanted their lives to be easier and they listened to that. And that's why they voted for him.
Under Josh Parsons'
Shut up,
leadership,
Josh Parson. No
Lancaster
one likes you. No one's going to vote for you. Don't vote for Josh Parson. I don't like him. He's already a Republican. I don't know.
As I said, I've seen dozens of these.
And that's why they voted for him. But they don't care.
As I said, I've seen dozens of these since the election and since Trump has been doing what he's been doing. And for people like this woman that you're looking at right here, this looks like genuine contrition, right? This looks like somebody who actually is like, holy shit. Like they woke up. They were in a cult. They woke up. They just saw all the cult members drank the Kool-Aid and killed themselves for the dear leader.
Yeah.
And she's like, holy shit. Was I wrong? Did I misread that? And she said, they don't care who they hurt. That's one area where I have to correct her. No, the whole point is to hurt certain people. There are certain communities that they want to hurt.
Yep.
That's why they focus.
They don't want to hurt white Christian man. They don't want to hurt white men. White Christian men who are like not Latino, or if they are Latino, they're fascist and right wing and they hate fucking LGBT and shit.
So much on trans people. That's why they focus so much on immigrants. That's why they focus so much on Democrats, right? These are the people in their narrative, in their story, in their retelling of this country. These people are the bad guys. And anything and everything we have to do to fight back against these bad guys is justified, is necessary. Forget the law, forget the Constitution, forget reason, forget justice, forget sanity. Whatever we do to get retribution and revenge against these people that we blame for all of our problems, we're going to do. It's scapegoating 101. It's scapegoating 101. And of course, what you know and what I know is that trans people and immigrants are not the problem. The real problem are the oligarchs, the billionaires, the robber barons, the Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world. These people have bought the government. The multinational corporations have bought the government, and they've rigged it in their favor and against the American people. The top 1% has stolen $80 trillion from the bottom 90% since 1975. Guys, this is the end result.
They're robbing us.
So now we have effectively a death cult, a fascist death cult that's running the country. And you should be happy about this part, that so many people are waking up. When you look at these town halls that are happening across the country and Republican politicians are getting reamed, understand that that audience is not just Democrats. It's not just independents. There are a lot of Republicans in there, former Republicans in there, former MAGA in there. And look, you can only, what do I always tell you guys? Reality always catches up eventually. Now, I'll hand it to Trump and Elon. They are the masters at twisting reality and making people think that the sky isn't blue and the grass isn't green. Like, that's their main skill.
You can only lie to people for so long. You can only lie to people for so long before they realize.
Is marketing and PR and twisting the truth. But eventually the reality always catches up. So when you have a situation where the market's tanking day in and day out, and the tariffs are on and the tariffs are off and the tariffs are on and the tariffs are off, and you're warmongering with Canada and Greenland and Panama and Iran and Mexico and Venezuela and Somalia and Yemen. Guess what? Eventually people realize, hold on, weren't you fucking saying anti-war shit on the campaign trail? Weren't you calling Kamala a warmonger? Weren't you calling Liz Cheney a warmonger? Now you're bragging about bombing Yemen. Now you're bragging about bombing Somalia. Now you're threatening Iran directly. Now you're saying draw up military plans for us to steal Panama. Hold on, didn't you say you were going to lower the prices? What the fuck? The egg prices are going up. What are you talking about? We got bird flu running rampant, and you froze our health agencies from even reporting on that. Like, eventually the reality catches up. And then add on top of that anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000 government employees getting laid off, right? By the way, we're about to be in a colossal recession, if we're not already, because not only is it government employees that are getting laid off, it's also people in the private sector. I happen to know many of them myself where this is going on. The data is going to catch up eventually. You'll see. Right? At some point, people go, the ones who were at all connected to reality go, holy shit, the prices are going up. And you got people losing their jobs. And you got Medicare being cut, Social Security being cut, Medicaid being cut to the tune of $880 billion. That's what the Republicans passed through the House. And I'm supposed to believe that this movement was to make America great again? Well, why are you going in the wrong direction on virtually every single issue? And I haven't even gotten into the authoritarianism yet. I haven't even gotten into that we're going to deport the pro-Palestine protesters. A 10-year-old girl's recovering from cancer, don't care, kick her out of the country. A surgeon's here, don't care, kick him out of the country. We're going to torture a green card holder, a permanent legal resident from Germany. Came to the airport, don't care. Try to get him to leave the country. Now they have quotas. ICE has quotas. Got to kick out 1,200 to 1,500 people. Well, guess what? There aren't that many criminals. There aren't that many violent, criminal, undocumented immigrants in the country. So who are you going to end up deporting? You're going to end up deporting the 10-year-old. You're going to end up deporting the surgeon. You're going to end up deporting people who didn't do anything wrong to anybody and are following the rules. And so that's why you're seeing it now. You're seeing people wake up. They're realizing what's going on, right? And that's why those town halls As much as the Republicans want you to believe the opposite, those town halls are a microcosm of the country right now. You have the fascist death cult that is marching off of a cliff, and you have everybody else going, holy fucking shit, what are we witnessing right now? What are we witnessing? And the main takeaway is what?
Literally,
he
dude.
said, look, it says right on the screen. They were right about MAGA. It's not about making America great again. It's about one man wanting more money, power, and control.
More.
A malignant narcissist with an ego the size of Mount Everest. Two of them, actually. The president and the co-president, the shadow president, Elon Musk. That's what it is. And then again, like I said, when the reality catches up, everybody who's gettable is going to wake up, right? Everybody who's even barely connected to reality, even by tiny shreds, they're going to wake up. And then everybody else is going to be, they're going to be the ones who drank the Kool-Aid, right? They're going to be the ones who, just like Jim Jones' cult, going to end up dead on the ground in a hut in, where was it? It wasn't Papua New Guinea, it was somewhere else. But anyway, you get the point. Anytime you see videos like this, share them, right? You got to get the word out. You got to get, because this gives other people license to wake up. This gives other people the ability to be like, you know what? I'm not alone. Maybe I will speak up. Maybe I will get out of this now. Right? And by the way, like, here's the main point. How many bright red lines have to be crossed before, you know, you get 85% of the country is this woman? How many bright red lines? They're already destroying the First Amendment. He's already going after the free press, saying CNN and MSNBC should be, quote, illegal. Like I said, he's already warmongering with 7 or 8 different countries, even though he pretended like he was anti-war on the campaign trail half the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're already firing government workers and slashing people's health care and shit. So you answer that question for me. You answer that question for me. But share these all over the place. Get the word out there. The more that wake up, the better. And look, I understand people who have the inclination to be like, sort of fuck you, because all the signs were there in the first place and you ignored them. I get that. I understand that. But at the same time, this is the way out, right? This is the way out. When you hit a colossal number and everybody's active, everybody's in the streets, everybody's fighting back. You understand what I'm saying? And especially, I'm especially willing to be open-minded when you're dealing with somebody who's showing a tremendous amount of contrition, right? As long as you believe them about what they're saying, then shit, we got to welcome. We got to welcome with open arms, right? You got to do it. Nobody, if somebody gets out of a death cult, like a literal death cult, like the Jim Jones cult, and you're like, well, fuck you, you should have known from day one this was a death cult. And then they go back to the death cult. It's like, well, what do we accomplish by doing that? It's counterproductive, right? So I understand the instinct to be like, sort of fuck you, the signs were there for so fucking long. I get it. But at the same time, if somebody's experiencing, you know, genuine regret, and they're explaining to you now in no uncertain terms, hey, here's what's going on. Well, you have no choice but to be the bigger person, be the better person, and use this energy in service of going in the right direction. And that's what we're going to witness now. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out.
Let's check out Mass Deportation by The Habituation Room with Francesca Fiorentini and Sam Cedar.
Again, except for the moments when we think about it all the time. It is called Orange Man Bad, and I have to do the ad read after this. Here we go. This week, Orange Man was given advance warning for a massive Israeli strike, in fact, multiple strikes that have killed over 400 Palestinians in Gaza, including babies. I have no jokes for any of these things, people. Orange Man is now openly bombing Yemen, including children. 53 civilians, including children, were killed in what the regime is claiming is an attempt to go after Houthi rebels linked to Iran. Orange Man spoke with Vladimir Putin today, and they agreed to a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine without Ukraine. Orange Man also let MMA fighter Conor McGregor roam around the Oval Office and do a press conference. And that's like not the worst thing that happened this week. Orange Man has declared fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction because we're really just reliving every bad Republican presidency, but like head wound style. This is like head wound Bush. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. And honestly, who knows what weapons of mass destruction are anyway, so it might as well have been fentanyl this whole fucking time. Doggy has broken into the U.S. Institute of Peace, a congressionally funded independent nonprofit that works to advance U.S. values in conflict resolution, and he's now taken it over. So that's fun. And Orange Man's Department of Education no longer exists. I mean, it's been gutted. Half of the staff have been fired in what Linda McMahon is calling the final mission. But other than all that, Orange Man is doing pretty well. And that has been Orange Man Bad. Do you feel better?
I was going to say, when that music came on, I'm like, oh, this is pleasant. And then everything else happened. I know what you're trying to do.
It's part of it.
You're trying to make it better by less painful with the music. And that.
I see what you're doing. And it almost works. It almost works. When I have enough time to write some jokes about, oh my God, Conor McGregor giving a press conference. But you know what does make things better, Sam? And I know you know this, but every night and some days when I need to be extra switched on, usually when I'm debating Piers Morgan, I turn to Sunset Lake CBD. That's right. Echa.
As soon as that red light comes on, bro.
Oh, shut up. Fuck Spotify, bro.
Very good things.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that. No, in all seriousness, I feel like we've got a dirty war on our hands in the making. That is what it seems like as Trump's Gestapo is taking place and mass deportations are happening very indiscriminately and yet very specifically on certain people. And there's three basic buckets, right? Latino immigrants, Palestine protesters, and like just for DEI shits and gigs, white randos. That's sort of the buckets I've got. Trump on Friday, I believe, invoked the Alien Enemies Act, which is only invoked or has been invoked during wartime in this country, specifically to go after Venezuelan migrants. It deported over 200 of them to not Venezuela, to El Salvador, strangely enough, saying that they are part of Tren de Aragua gangs. I gotta say it right. It's just funny to me, Sam, that like Tren de Aragua started in a prison. I feel like maybe you wouldn't want to put, if you think that these immigrants are all gang members, which they're not, like don't put them back into prison. You know, maybe try something else if you're trying to nip gangs in the bud. But doesn't matter. He basically as these flights were heading towards El Salvador, a federal judge ordered them to be returned in the United States. That was ignored. The judge has put a 14-day restraining order on this Wartime Enemies Act, Alien Enemies Act, but it still went forward. I think you've seen this video. This is like a promo video that Nayib.
Yay, fascism, Nazi shit. Woo!
Bukele, the president of El Salvador, put out of these Venezuelans being deported from the United States and then having their, like, being violently hauled off. I mean, they got like a drone camera for this.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was a complete propaganda. I mean, look at this.
Look at this shit.
Absurd.
So, and they're hauling people away. They're shaving their heads and their beards and everything. Got a little royalty-free music in the background, at least we hope. And these are people who, by the way, we're now learning just happen to have tattoos.
Yep.
They just, a tattoo artist, happen to have tattoos. He entered this country legally. He was seeking asylum. A teenager in Dallas who had a tattoo is also among the deported. A 26-year-old whose wife said he's not in a gang. Again, this is just blanket, pick them up. And then, Nayib Bukele, who's been a friend of this administration because, he runs a police state. In response to the federal judge ordering the flights to turn around, basically, he tweeted, "Oopsie, too late. Ha, laugh, cry."
This Nayib Bukele motherfucker, fuck you. I hope when Democrats are in power, I really hope we invade your fucking country and overthrow you like 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 some fucking like Chile. I hope we overthrow your ass, Naive Buckethead or whatever the fuck your dumbass name is. You crypto bitch. I heard you use crypto. Bro, I hope we fucking invade your country and overthrow your ass. And then install a fucking socialist leader. A socialist comrade. Oh, oopsie, too late. Oh, laughing emoji. Oh, I'm so cool. I'm a leader of a country and I have slave centers. I have slave concentration camps. Fuck you, you psychopath.
Cry face. So yeah, that is.
And then Marco Rubio retweeted that.
They're buddies. They're buddies. Marco Rubio was in El Salvador, was in San Salvador meeting with Nayib Bukele while Elon was hollowing out the State Department, like or a USAID, and Marco was like, damn it. So that's what's happening, and like you gotta say, I am. This is horrifying, but it also speaks to the ways that the narratives about undocumented people in this country have fed into this very moment. And anyone who seriously thinks that Tren de Aragua is like a scourge upon our country and that we're taking over buildings in Aurora, Colorado without evidence, this shit is on them too.
I mean, it is clear from the reporting that there are at least some people where there's a lot of evidence that they're not part of that gang. There is zero evidence that any of them are part of that gang. If they were such a problem, the idea that ICE could either swoop in and get 200, arrest 200 like this, like what? Why weren't you? What were you waiting for? If they're committing crimes, what have you been waiting for? To swoop in? You've been waiting 2 months for doing this? Of course, it's absurd. But on top of which, this Alien Enemies Act, like you say, has been invoked only 3 times in the history of this country. The War of 1812, World War I, World War II. The pattern there is that I had to use the word war each time it was invoked. There is no way you can say that right now we are
not in a war. We're not in a war.
Or any type of enemy incursion. Remember, after 9/11, which was done by multiple sleeper cells in this country, this was not invoked. And so...
which is crazy to... And again, I'm never going to be that person that's like, I miss George W. Bush. Like, no. But the fact that... No, they created an entire other infrastructure and, the Patriot Act,
there's all lots of
and
problems,
everything
but
else.
Also, remember, you did not have now 25 years behind you in 2001. You did not have 25 years of the Federalist Society judges, because that's what they're banking on. They're banking on a right-wing judiciary that is going to sign off on this, because there really isn't a lot of legal precedent as to whether the president can invoke this at any time. There's no way you can argue that immigration is a greater threat now than it was a year or two ago. I mean, the number of border crossings, the number of whatever metric you use, it's literally like a 10th or a 20th of what it was, in the wake of COVID. And so there's just no way to argue that there is some type of like emergency in which this act needs to be invoked. The only question is whether a right-wing judiciary will say you can do it whenever you want, is essentially like it's president's prerogative. And that is something that would have been completely impossible for George W. Bush to have done in the wake of 9/11. But we're 25 years later, and there's a whole different judiciary.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying. And also, Justice Roberts today, because I believe Donald Trump wanted this judge who issued that, stay on the Alien Enemies Act to be impeached. And Justice Roberts like, well, now I'm your friend, but you can't just do that. We shouldn't
I
be
worry
doing that.
about that if that's not Robert's way of seeming like I'm impartial. Now come to me with a case that's going to be material and
Absolutely.
Good. I'll do you another solid like he thanked him for at the State of the Union.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, this Supreme Court is basically like, we'll totally green light your dirty war, but like try, like just like do a little once over, copy edit it, run it through a couple more lawyers, and then we'll sign off. And speaking of the dirty war, there's more, and I think this is where it concerns like our people, as students who have said anything about Palestine, people on student visas, H-1B visas. This is a week after Mahmoud Khalil was swept up from his apartment next to his 8-month pregnant wife. And so you've got Columbia student Ranjavi Srinivasan, who's a Fulbright recipient. She just fled to Canada, which makes sense given what they are facing. And that's pretty much what this administration wants people to do.
Yep.
There's Dr. Rasha Alawi, who was a kidney transplant specialist on an H-1B visa.
Huh.
I believe she was deported because she had photos on her phone of the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah leader, which is like, if you're Lebanese, that's not that crazy. And then you've got random whites. You've got a German-born green card holder, 34-year-old electrical engineer who was tortured by Border Patrol, it looks like.
At Logan Airport.
He was stripped naked and showered by 2 officers with ice-cold water. He hardly got anything to drink, and then he collapsed. And then just today we learned that a woman named Jasmine Moody, an actor, was held for 12 days while she tried to do the right thing and come forward and be like, hey, I just want to renew my visa. I'm going to do that at this port of entry. And they held her for 12 days. And that's like the other thing. And I just have to like share these other stories. But in Baltimore, there was a new article from The Nation out explaining how where ICE detention facilities have been shut down, immigrants are being held in facilities that are not meant for long-term stays, that don't have proper showers, bathrooms, privacy, anything like that. So a grandmother from Central America who did not have a criminal record was not allowed to shower for the entirety of her detention. She was denied toothpaste, toothbrushes, hair ties. She had to use a public toilet cell in front of other detainees.
Bro, what the fuck? What, you fucking fascist pieces of shit.
With HIV wasn't given their medication. A trans woman spent 8 days alone in a holding cell before being transferred to an all-male detention facility. A Belizean man in his 50s who suffers from diabetes was lived in the country since he was 6 years old. He was in removal proceedings while serving in a state prison sentence when Sergio took on the case last year. That's his lawyer. ICE transferred him to the Baltimore courthouse upon his release without notifying his lawyer. For 2 days there, her client, who's diabetic, required constant glucose monitoring treatment, was not given his insulin or other medication, and became delirious. Upon his transfer to a facility in Florida, he was placed under medical observation for 23 hours due to uncontrolled diabetes. ICE is saying their detentions and holding these folks in, random holding cells, which really should be like, they're like drunk tanks, right? They're like, halfway points.
Turn your best idea.
That those are not subject to national detention guidelines. A spokesperson wrote that the agency, quote, remains committed to enforcing immigration laws fairly, blah, 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 ensures that everything is in full compliance with federal laws, but also we're not subject to those. So it really is like dirty war tactics, and it's coming down on, innocent fucking people.
Yeah, I mean it's a real problem. I mean I vacillate between wondering if this is, the beginning of a broader plan, or if it isn't a recognition that they don't have the ability to deliver what they had promised their followers, which was mass deportation. So
Right.
in lieu of that, they're going to try and pursue the most egregious of deportations, the most extreme and propagandistic, and the ones that seem most intimidating and cruel. I have a feeling it's somewhere in between. Like, I don't know, I don't know that they're, Stephen Miller is sitting saying like, get the kidney specialist, what the prize kidney specialist, so that we prove to everybody that anybody is in trouble. I have a feeling it's more like all they got to do, because, the fact is that a lot of ICE officers, if you will, were basically washouts from the police academy.
Yeah, they're losers.
They're not, I mean, you don't want to paint anybody with like too broad a brush, but I don't think you need to, I think you can get a fairly wide brush and say, these people are sort of scummy.
Yep.
And so when you take off the handcuffs, essentially, or the shackles, and you just say, guys, go to town, nobody's getting in trouble. You have no accountability. Their natural instinct takes over, and they go for the easiest, safest targets for them, right? The ones that are going to cause them the least amount of danger, where they can get as much of their sort of like rocks off on intimidating people. And that's the type of people they go for.
Yeah, on the grandmothers, on the people who are literally working construction sites. A Venezuelan man picked up at a construction site. This is like the opposite of going after hardened criminals, because, that requires, I don't know, police work and shit.
Yep.
It might be kind of hard to go after them. You can't just sweep them up. And oh yeah, there aren't that many hardened criminals. Meanwhile, yes, our president is a convicted rapist. I mean, sexual abuser, pick your poison. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just whatever. It doesn't matter. It's indiscriminate. It can be anyone. However, that's not the case for someone like Mahmoud Khalil or students who are being targeted, right?
Oh,
So it's
they'll take solicitations. You got to, they have a request line, and
you
if it's
can
the right
tweet
person,
at Marco Rubio.
Yep.
So that's the question for me, is like, that's why I call it a dirty war, because it's like, this is like, people can rat out. It's indiscriminate for everyone, but then it's like, but Palestine protesters, really.
Yep. I think that's true. I mean, we know it's true.
All right, y'all. Let's move on to my last topic. Gatsu, 9 days ago. Let's watch this. America's downfall.
My old job didn't have room to
Shut up! Online degrees.
Cybersecurity.
A war criminal once said, "It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal." I'm not Balkan, so I don't usually agree with war criminals, but this one was saying the truth here, because we all saw on video what unfolded between Trump and Zelensky, where an American ally literally at war with America's enemy for like the last 100 years, and the biggest country in the world was shouted at and scolded by Trump, the vice president, and this guy as well. This whole argument was so artificial, it was crazy to see. Zelensky literally didn't do anything disrespectful or wrong, and they started yelling at him. Now, I'm from the hood, so sometimes people come up to you on the street just to start fucking with you and making up any reason to get into an altercation. This is exactly what happened. Demanding an apology, demanding a thank you. So fucking stupid, especially because this was all on video and we can see the entire argument beginning to the end. And by we, I mean the entire world saw this unfold, and everyone saw how America treats its allies. And this live TV argument was so bullshit that even Americans think that Trump or JD Vance were guilty of starting everything. The thing is, America is legally required to protect Ukraine because they made Ukraine give up their nukes in exchange for protection from the US in the Budapest Memorandum. let me start off by saying I absolutely hate the current American rule. America has never been the good guy or anything like that. No superpower really has been, but this is too much, man. We watched America literally curse out their ally on live TV. Everybody knows I've been supporting Ukraine very hard since the war began, and after Ukraine started getting foreign aid, it became a populist move to shit on Ukraine, and all people who know nothing about the dynamics of post-Soviet countries have wanted to say their objectively incorrect opinions about this. Like, I'm sure Theo Vaughn really understands the dynamics here. He then deleted his post because he's a comedian and can't even fucking point to Europe on a map. And other people who are constantly on Trump's like Lex Friedman, you piece of shit, who would interview a just to hear his side of the story and call him a friend whom he bonded with over their shared love of Russian literature or some shit. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment fucking sucks. If I wanted to hear a Russian guy whining about being poor, they're right here, I would just go and fucking visit. And while Zelensky says that he doesn't think that his public humiliation was planned, I think he's low-key saying it to not fully ruin relations between him and the US, because there's this one Marjorie Taylor Greene who is extremely anti-Ukraine, and her boyfriend somehow got one of those rare Oval Office interviewer spots and decided to ask Zelensky this.
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems. First of all, country leaders who are at war with a much larger empire don't usually wear suits. They don't really have time for that shit, you know? It's only the motherfuckers who don't care about this wearing suits because it's not a life.
It really doesn't matter. He could have wore a suit. He doesn't really have to. Fuck the suits anyways. But just because you're at war, you don't need to not wear a suit.
For this situation for them, such as Bush during all the Middle Eastern wars and more. You think if you're at war with the US or Russia, you're gonna give a fuck about wearing a suit? This is a talking point that has been propagandized from people funded by Russia or being a useful idiot that supports them for free. And also, Elon doesn't wear shit either. So these are clearly double standards.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is in the Oval Office looking like one of those child predators they catch on YouTube and then beat up, along with a fucking chainsaw, and they're demanding Zelensky wear a suit and tie and make fun of him. So now a country's leader who is defending an aggressive war from the biggest country in the world is being made fun of from a guy who's famous for fucking this woman. And their whole argument was very disappointing to see. They're blaming him that he wants to start World War III, not the country that invaded them. You ever scroll through the news and feel like people are living two completely different realities? One headline is like, Zelensky just doomed Ukraine because he is bad. And the other says, Zelensky is amazing. So which is it? Did he get cooked or did he cook? You can get very confused on the internet. Not even meat riding here. Russia has shown time and time again that they cannot be trusted with a ceasefire. Russia has been at war with Ukraine since 2014 and they have violated the ceasefire not once, not twice, but 25 times. Until, of course, fully invading Ukraine in 2022. So obviously Zelensky is asking for security guarantees because there have been at least 25 other cases with Ukraine alone where they have violated their ceasefire agreement. Do you think they became the biggest country in the world through diplomacy and not violating their ceasefire agreements? And right after this, Elon, who holds a significant amount of power since he's always with Trump and always keeps cutting services for normal Americans because why does he care? He's a billionaire. He can cut Medicaid. It's not like he's gonna give a fuck. He doesn't need it. Elon said he wants to leave NATO and the UN. So then all of Europe is just undefended. Fucking North Korea is in the UN. This is the easiest way to destroy your global hegemony. And they did all this within a month.
What the fuck happened?
And they did all this within a month. Clowner. Plays Gulf of Mexico's name with Gulf of America. Fuck you mean leaving the UN? What can I say? Good job, man. USA replaced Gulf of Mexico's name with Gulf of America, and China built 96,000 miles of rail. And after this clownery, Europeans went like, okay, we knew America was cooked and could not be trusted, but let's actually start doing shit about this. But you guys have to realize that Europeans are pussies who cannot do anything except waste paper through useless voting resolutions.
Damn.
As always, it's up to the European people to do stuff since their politicians are fucking useless. So Tesla sales have nearly halved in Europe. Europe is actively looking for new allies such as India, China, and Canada. One of Norway's largest companies have announced that they will stop supplying fuel to the US Navy.
Get
and
fucked.
every American ally ever is actively looking for new allies now, including Canada, which is insane. Who knew that threatening to annex your neighbors, tariffing them, and threatening to leave their defense alliance would make them act this way? And motherfuckers were like, oh, you're meat riding China. Motherfucker, I have yet to see the CCP politicians hiling on the fucking stage. I don't like Nazis, therefore I'm getting paid by the CCP.
Attention shoppers, want to spend less? Go to Aldi. They're #1 in everyday low prices.
Trump is now in his first month in
Shut
office, and we
up!
want to know how you think he's doing as president. You guys know how I think he's doing.
Shut up.
CP, bro. My grandpas were Nazis, the CCP politicians hiling on the fucking stage. I don't like Nazis, therefore I'm getting paid by the CCP. Bro. My grandpas were CCP shills as well for fighting against the Nazis in the Soviet Union, you fucking idiot. Just like me. And the thing is, they're treating Zelensky so harshly and abandoning the biggest country in Europe, Ukraine, so harshly that they showed to the world they do not give a fuck and will sacrifice anything and anyone for money. They're like trade offer. I get to mine your entire country's minerals and keep them for myself as a profit, and in exchange, you get no security guarantees and nothing really. Maybe we just stop bad-mouthing you in the press and calling you a dictator, but that's about it. Maybe. The stupidest thing is that of the money that they sent to Ukraine, which wasn't even that much, Europe sent way more. 70% of that money gets reinvested back into the US military companies because they send their old stuff to Ukraine and then they need new ones, right? So they order new ones and then those companies pay taxes and grow the American economy. But they resorted to making Zelensky seem like a fucking beggar and humiliating him live on stream. Also, destroying USAID was the funniest thing ever because I saw a tweet. What if we create USAID to fund right-wing revolutions in countries instead of this leftist, the gay stuff? My brother, that is exactly what USAID does.
Yeah, that's what it was doing.
Talking about? It's used for American influence in other countries. And yes, America does fund right-wing revolutions. That's why they have overthrown literally every single socialist leader or tried to. Don't forget that they've tried to assassinate Castro 634 times with methods such as an exploding cigar, the skin disease diving suit, making him high on LSD in his broadcasting studio so he'd start saying bullshit and ruin his public image, and they sent him a white woman. And this is what she said. He leaned over, pulled out his 45 and handed it to me. He didn't even flinch, and he said, "You can't kill me, nobody can kill me." And he kind of smiled and chewed on his cigar. I felt deflated. He was so sure of me. He just grabbed me. We made the love. That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT! USAID was genuinely one of America's biggest soft power weapons to gain influence in the countries it operated in. And America does fund right-wing revolutions. They've been doing this shit since like the 50s. They would overthrow a good socialist or a social democratic leader for an extreme capitalist that they themselves have trained and then privatize absolutely every resource in that country and all the state-owned companies and then get money for it, growing the American empire. And if you don't believe what I said, this whole strategy has a term for it called the shock doctrine. So you can look it up yourself as well, get a bunch of examples on where it has been used. It's genuinely so evil because they are playing with people's lives here, only to satisfy their egos and their capitalist money mindset. And this isn't the grind harder mindset, this is a loot people harder mindset, because the more Trump refuses to help their ally out, the more people will die. And they are pulling this stupid stunt of arguing and actively trying to embarrass their ally and treating him like a beggar. And the thing is, because Trump basically has a cult, his supporters will be like, "Oh, he's so cool for doing that. Take that, man who's trying to defend his country from the biggest country in the world." Because these people don't realize that they are in a cult following literal billionaires who do not care about the working class. They're literally shock doctrining themselves, where they're privatizing and getting rid of these essential human services under the pretense of saving money. Like, yes, man, I'm sure the richest country in the world needs to save money by dismantling the Department of Education, while literally every other country in the world has that department. America already is extremely privatized to the point where when healthcare CEOs are getting capped, everyone is like,
it had to be done.
And these people still want to privatize everything more, so it becomes even more capitalist and they loot even more money from normal Americans. Of course, they fired a ton of people because they needed to save money, and also they want to cut Medicaid to pay for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts and mass deportations. The GOP plans to roll back the federal healthcare insurance program. This translates to make Elon Musk and other billionaires richer and deport working people, we need to cut the healthcare insurance for normal people. And because of America abandoning their allies and abandoning their people just to be literal oligarchy, everybody is losing hope in the US, including Americans and including GDP forecasts, where they forecast the American economy is going to plunge nearly -3% in the first quarter. It's just crazy to see all this, and it's only been 40 days. We have to be here for the next 3 years and 10 months. Every morning, breaking news Donald Trump, breaking news JD Vance, breaking news Elon Musk. I don't want the news to be breaking anymore. Can it just be Trump making McDonald's or Elon every morning, breaking news Donald Trump, breaking news JD Vance, breaking news Elon.
Yo, Elon Musk has the whole Nazi cut. That's wild. So ugly, bro. Where's Luigi? Luigi when you need him, bro.
Musk. I don't want the news to be breaking anymore. Can it just be Trump making McDonald's or something for once? Please, instead of abandoning their allies? What the fuck even is the strategy here? Also, they're like, yes, Ukraine is bad for wanting money to defend against the biggest country in the world, which is also a nuclear power. But Israel? No worries, man. We'll cut healthcare for our citizens, fire workers, and cut aid to Ukraine. But you're fine because you're just an extension of the US. Oh, and also, on top of shitting on Ukraine and leaving it, he's talking about removing sanctions of Russia. So that is just plain evil, man. Trump's administration just loves fascist dictators. You bet your ass if Trump was with he would be talking about removing sanctions of him and that he's a great guy and like that Czechoslovakia and Poland want World War II and America abandoning Ukraine like this reminds me of the words of Georgia's first president.
Between the West and the Soviet Empire, there have always been deals. Yalta is known. Munich is known. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is known. Yes, Malta is known, and many other things are known as well. And let's not be on the side of the empire. Be on the side of your own nation and not on the side of deals with the West. Be on the side of our nation and serve your nation. This is the duty of the parliament and the duty of a deputy. And not play a double game between the empire and us.
And the egg prices are still going up. TLDR, don't trust billionaires. Like and subscribe, and goodbye.
Hey. Alright, I'm gonna end it, y'all. I'm gonna go hang out with my baby son for a little bit. I'm gonna leave you off with Luigi song.
This Friday.
No!
Somalia for the season.
No!
You got something for me?
Hey, see y'all later, y'all. Hey, remember, protest, call your senators, call your congressmen, tell them to fuck off.
Luigi not happy. Luigi, yeah. Can't stop Luigi. See you, bye-bye. I did it. Luigi did it. Good job, Luigi.
Thug life. Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. Malcolm X put a hex on my future, someone catch me. I'm falling victim to a revolutionary song. The Serengeti's clone. Back to put you backstabbers back on your spinal bone. You slit your disc when I slit you my dish. You wanted to diss but jumped on my dick.
Oh
Got my finger on the motherfucking pistol, aiming it at the pig. Charlotte's Web is gonna miss you. My issue isn't televising. You ain't gotta tell the wise how to stay on beat because our life's an instrumental. This is physical and mental. I won't sugarcoat it. You'll die from diabetes if these other niggas wrote it.
Luigi not happy.